Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee Certified Brewhead.
And I am Nathan from NathanDoesBeer.
Welcome to episode 141 of Beer and Other Shit, the podcast, Adjunct series. Nate, we are back. I know it doesn't, people, that we didn't actually have a break in pods, but we did have a break in recording. So it kind of feels like we're back.
Yeah, it does feel like we're back. It's been a minute since I've been on for an episode, anyways. After quite a summer break, it feels like.
Yeah, I feel like this is tending to happen kind of every year now. Like summer's getting more and more hectic, both for the guests. Like the breweries are busy as hell, and like you and I have real lives too, and sometimes you can't always coordinate it. So yes, it's great to be back. I'm excited to get back in the swing of things. And the brewery we're speaking to tonight is a brewery that you and I kind of bonded over a bunch of years ago due to one of their more innovative, fun fall releases that we will get into this evening. People know that Nate and I are very aggressively Team Pumpkin. Are we still Team Pumpkin? Because I know we don't really talk about it much anymore.
Yeah, I would say I'm still Team Pumpkin. I'm still in favor of it. I would probably even say now I'm probably more Team Marzen, but I'm still not gonna say no to a pumpkin beer.
Okay, I align wholeheartedly. Still here for the innovation, but yeah, the Marzen and the Oktoberfest and all those fun like fall beers, all here for it. But yeah, so this is a brewery out of Whitby, Ontario, which is interestingly enough a region that, you know, in the Durham region, about an hour, 45 minutes maybe east of Toronto. And it wasn't particularly known for craft beer until the last, I don't know, 5 years, a little more maybe. And as more and more breweries kept popping up, which is dope.
Probably a little more, even. Probably even more like 7-8 years, because
wow.
like the region has been quietly popping for quite some time now. It's one of those ones that maybe doesn't first come to mind because you're very often thinking of Toronto or
right.
There's pockets of southwestern Ontario and whatnot, but like it's got like 5 or 6 breweries there which have been pretty key in the Ontario scene and only getting more so, I think.
I couldn't agree more. So we're super excited to have this convo. So guys, please welcome Garett of Five Paddles Brewery in the building. Wow. We brought the crowd for you, bro. We brought the crowd.
That's amazing.
Welcome, sir.
Yes,
Thank
welcome.
you very much. Pleasure to be on.
Thank you so much for hanging out. We're excited to get into the story. There's a lot to talk about this evening, and we have a fantastic lineup of beers that you have curated for us to run through, starting with this little bad boy right here. Boom. Ripple Effect Lager, because what is a podcast without kicking off with a crispy? And
absolutely.
For those who know Five Paddles, I mean, look at this gorgeous new artwork, mate. This is stunning. We are going to get into all that. So first up, tell us about the beer, brother.
All right. Ripple Effect is meant to be that beer when people come in, because it's unavoidable, that people go, what do you have that tastes like Coors Light? What do you have that tastes like that? Right? It's unavoidable. I mean, like we've been doing it for 10 years. I've been in the industry, I guess now, and it's follows me everywhere. You know, you go up to a cottage and they're like, oh, that's a cool Russian Imperial Stout that you got there, but do you have anything that tastes like beer? And this is my attempt at something that tastes like beer. So Ripple Effect, as you mentioned, the label, absolutely beautiful. Me and Rachel, our artist, worked this one out. She must have left caps lock on, so we're getting a little fix on that, because most the rest of our labels are all just one capital at the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, this is all the fun learning that we get to do all over again. And Rachel's a great sport about it.
That's awesome. The how does this go down with those Coors Light drinkers?
Okay, so this is our first run of it, and it's going very well.
Okay.
Having made lagers before, at a previous brewery. We won the Ontario Brewing Awards with our first ever attempt at it. I stole with permission the lagering process from Sawdust City. So
Hey,
thank you,
just a
Sam.
legend, Sam.
Absolute legend. So happy I got to work under him for a very short amount of time, but stole that, and now we keep in contact, and now I can make some pretty killer lagers.
That's amazing, dude. Well, first and foremost, we need to have a nice little cheers here. Gentlemen,
Yeah, we do.
cheers. Get that in you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, nice, that light, that kind of American light lager corn kind of nose.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the corn's in
There she
there,
is.
and I'm going to dial it back a little bit. I'm still learning the system. We're only 3 months in now as our new owner. So I'm looking to dial this in more and more and more and get it to where I want. For me, it's just that learning process all over again is super fun. It's refreshing to get to restart. You know?
Totally, man. I mean, we're going to get into, because maybe people are not really sure even what you're talking about as far as the restart from Five Paddles, because there's quite the story behind that. But yes, for people who do know, this is a relaunch of the brand under new ownership.
Yes.
And this is like you said, the first time. So it's a brand new recipe brewed for the new brewery. Okay, amazing.
Took it from inspiration from earlier lagers that I've made.
Okay.
And inspired by those macros in a way. How can we beat them at their own game? That's kind of what we're aiming for here.
I totally get it, man. I'm getting all of those notes that you would expect from like the light lager that would speak to a drinker of those macro beers, whilst obviously a superior product in as far as, if you're going to drink craft lager is my favorite thing in the world. And it's like, so the response, obviously the three of us, it's very easy to just be like, oh yeah, these are great. I feel like more and more breweries are doing this, and I imagine for that reason to appease like a gateway kind of beer for those drinkers who are maybe existing macro drinkers. But is there like I'm always curious about gateway. I think gateway things are so important and very under discussed. Is there any like pushback from people, or do they immediately, from what you've seen, are just like, oh, okay, like, is it familiar enough to them?
No, it's that second one. It is complete acceptance and joining into the craft brewing world and going, oh, okay, so I don't have to drink a 10% bourbon barrel aged smoothie, prefix IPA something, right?
Gotcha.
I can just come here and have a beer, because when I want to bring, your old school parents, guess what? That's how my mom got into it. And now she laughed at me when we went out one time and we're just drinking, and I bring her and dad everywhere, and we were having beers, and I'm like, okay, what should she get? Oh, get the blonde, get whatever, the light lager, and then I'm drinking double IPAs. This is early in my before the lupulin shift kind of thing happens, right?
Gotcha.
And she just finally goes one day at a brewery, and I can't remember which one. She just goes, huh, no flavor in this. And I was like, what do you mean no flavor? It's perfectly fine. And she tries my double IPA, and she goes, now that has flavor. And I was like, yes, we got her.
There you go.
We got her. And she was one of those raised on the bottle, die on the bottle, blue drinkers, right? We got her off it now.
There we go. Love to hear it. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of persistence and continual exposure. I mean, obviously, what better than having a child in the beer industry, which is pretty dope. So it's the same thing with anybody, really. I guess you just gotta like keep drinking around people and not shoving it in their faces, but politely, hey, try this. I hope at least there's a level of adventurousness and maybe an interest from your parents, particularly because you're in the industry. So it's like, it makes it a little easier, I imagine.
Yeah, and I can bring this up to the cottage and share this down the entire block, you know what I mean? And no one's going to really bat an eye at this one.
Yeah,
doing it.
and I would say that's probably true. Like that's probably true whether they're craft drinkers or not. Because as much as this is the answer to the question of do you have anything that do you have anything that tastes like beer? This is just a hypothesis. You can tell me if you agree. But even still, craft drinkers too. Um, there is a shift towards wanting something simpler and lighter, which is like one of the reasons I think that a lot of craft brewers are doing more their version of an American light lager. And everyone still wants that cottage beer or that campfire beer, and I feel like this is also speaking to that need as well. Do you find that's the case?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was down at the 2019 Great American Beer Fest in Denver. First of all, every beer drinker in the world needs to go to that
Oh, yeah.
fest.
What
It
year
is
did you
the
say?
coolest. 2019.
I was there the year before. It was insane.
Ah,
I'd never
yeah,
seen anything like it.
it's the coolest thing to ever happen to me in beer. So I went down there, and of course, 2019 being the year of juicies, hazies, like that was the rise, right? And then
Yep.
America's probably 5 years ahead of us in the beer world. Just back then, now I think we're almost on par with like our trends of what we're buying and what we're selling. But I was one of the only people going around being like, "Oh, a pilsner," and I'm running up to the booth, right? And they're all looking for those 10% imperial stouts, those double IPAs, those IBU bombs, whatever they were looking for. And I have a maybe I'll save this story for the pilsner later on.
Yeah, we
But
could say that. We'll come
yeah,
back to
I'll
that
save
because
that one. I'll save that one.
GABF is. I haven't thought about that for a while. It was so intense,
Right?
and it's like I kept the glass. I've got it somewhere, but like it's so weird that they have like you get like 1 ounce of each beer, and
Yeah.
it feels ridiculous, but you still manage to kind of get lit by the end.
Oh, hands
It
down.
was
It was the easiest night of drinking ever.
it was great, and we did the media passes, so we got like part of that. You get that extra hour, and that was
Wow.
kind of worth it because some of the places like WorldWorks, excuse me, the lines were bonkers. So then we were able to like skip the lines. You go in with the brewers, you get you in the brewers line,
Amazing.
and you got to try a bunch of those sort of hyper stuff before. I didn't get everything, but it was like it's exactly what you kind of said. Everything's bigger in the States, and like it's like you don't even know what to do. Like it's so overwhelming because it's like I can see why people go for the weekend so that you can try a lot more and have a little bit less stress. Otherwise, you got 3 hours or whatever it is to just get everything in, and how much time you're like, all right, well, there's a massive line there. Do I want to worry about that, or do I want to try something else that I know I can't get and it's going to be fun anyway? It's just fucking hectic. Fun
It's
though.
hectic and it's so worth it, man. I did 2 nights. I did the Thursday and the Friday, I believe.
Oh, you did too.
And,
Okay.
Yeah, and it was just like my cousin met me down there for one, and then the other time I was just solo, and I rode my bike there. I came out of there. I couldn't find my bike after because I was just gone, three sheets
Yeah.
to the wind kind of thing. Like you said, off 1 ounce samples, and next thing you know, you're having like 100.
That can sneak
Over
up on
3
you.
hours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It does sneak up
that
on
can
you for
sneak up on
sure.
you very easily.
yeah.
Seriously, it's a trip. I would say I agree with you, Garrett, that it's like I think it's an experience that every craft beer drinker needs to have. Like right at this particular point in time, I'm not much of a festival guy. Like I might go, but I'm not going to go out of my way travel for a festival hectically again.
It's got to be the best. And you know what? GABF is the best. I mean, you can go to Oktoberfest; those are going to be amazing everywhere.
Of course.
But like GABF is just another level of craft beer appreciation.
Yeah, just to see the scope of it, and like even then, I still bumped into people who either knew the podcast or people from Canada that I kind of known from Instagram and stuff. Like, there's people around. Like, it's kind of crazy. So it's definitely where I feel like we could yap about that all night.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Let's get into some five paddles action here. So let's get even before we get to five paddles, let's talk about you for a sec, bro. What could you talk us through your history with beer, like how you got into it, and then kind of like talk us through your career, the different breweries you've been at, and different things you've worked on.
Absolutely. So I went to Guelph for wildlife biology, and found out there's no jobs in wildlife biology once I got my degree.
That's
started started drinking craft beer at my local craft brewery, which was Five Paddles, and went, oh man, I could do this. Like, I just thought, with no experience, no home brewing, no nothing, I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if like this is what you did? Like, you've been drinking for 4 years at college, you're getting pretty good at it, because that's what everyone thinks a brewer does, is just drinks. Right?
Of course.
So I put in my resume there and kept drinking there. And a year later, I remember it because it was on a Super Bowl Sunday, I get a phone call being like, hey, do you want to come in for that interview at Five Pals? I was like, oh, yeah, I totally forgot I dropped off a resume. I'll be in Monday. And sure enough, show up. And they're like, when can you start? I said, tomorrow. And the rest is history from there. Worked my way up from the bottling line. Yes, I said bottling line. There's still bottling lines out there.
What year was this?
That would have been, 10 years ago. Yeah, 2013. I think something around there.
That's definitely bottle era.
That is the bottle era. And these guys were doing bombers.
Yeah, like not just bottles, but like big, like 650 mil bastards. Like those were proper bottles.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I can't even imagine a world where that was the predominant packaging offering. Like, there wasn't short cans unless it was.
The space it takes up is insane.
Yeah, you have to have a special fridge. Yeah, I wouldn't even be able to fit a bottle that tall in my fridge right now. I'd have to adjust the whole shelf system.
Yeah,
right.
And I don't think any brewery makes barely even maybe some imperial stouts, maybe.
Right.
But aside from that, I couldn't even tell you another brewery that's doing like actual 650 bombers in any regular style. It's just funny when you think about how much it's changed. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where I started, was bottling every day of the week. And that was at the point where we only had our small system, 300-liter batches coming out of there, and worked my way into a cellarman position underneath them. And the thing about the old Five Paddles is it was 5 home brewers that came together and started their own brewery and built it literally by themselves. No outside contractors, anything like that. It was just them buying used equipment off of other breweries selling it. So I'm pretty sure we have some old Royal City or Railway City, I can't remember, their tanks.
Yeah.
We have some old stuff from like downtown. Oh man, now I'm just blanking on all these ones, but it's just like, we were buying old used equipment that nobody wanted, and we're like, we can make this work. So from there, with those 5 guys being the 5 brewers, the 5 home brewers, there was no room for me to move up. And they encouraged me. They said, if you want to become a brewer, sorry, position's filled by 5 of us.
Right.
How about we hook you up? And they graciously sent me up to Second Wedge in Uxbridge to go train under Doug, and I got hired there.
Okay.
Trained under Doug, and Doug had like 25 years in the industry, worked at Upper Canada Brewing, Church Key Brewing, and
like OG shit.
OG shit, man.
Yeah.
And he this guy was transferring yeast, and he would just open valves and just be like, well, that feels about right. And I'm like, what do you mean? You didn't, like, there's no measuring, there's no counting, there's no nothing. He's just, everything was by feel. And it's hard to learn under someone like that, but there's also, that's where I got to appreciate the art of brewing rather than that super technical side of like, there is creativity and you just get to feel and put yourself into this beer, this product, right? So I stayed there for a year and a half, and then I decided to take off. My dad passed away, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do van life. It's something I've always wanted to do. Like, retirement doesn't always guarantee that you're gonna get to live your life. So I said, do it while you're young. I have the time, and I decided to do van life in February of 2020. Got a month and a half in, and boom, COVID. Yeah, cheers to that one, right?
Damn, that's some bad timing right there.
Yeah, I made it all the way down to Phoenix, Arizona, and I was talking with this guy that wanted to open a brewery, and I was just doing some consultation for him and saying like, oh, you should order this and don't order that. And he's like, well, how about we go talk about this out in the middle of the Sedona mountains and go do some rock climbing, brother? And I was like, sounds sweet. We head out there, and my mom is calling me now being like, the coronavirus is here, like we gotta get you home. And I'm like, Mom, relax. The experts are saying we got 2 weeks, we just gotta hunker down for 2 weeks. I'm in the middle of the desert, virus won't be able to get me out here, we're good. And then Trudeau comes on TV that Monday, I guess, or Sunday, and says everyone home.
Yeah,
right. And I drove 3 days straight home with 175 beers in the back of my truck. Don't come after me, border security.
You were gone long enough. That's fine.
Yeah. And he let me over. And then, COVID was COVID, but I got back into the industry through Northern Canning and got to go around mobile canning all the way around Ontario, canning behind in the back of every brewery, it felt like, and getting to see the ins and outs of every craft brewer in Ontario was pretty sweet. I mean, like we were up in North Bay, down in London, all that sort of stuff. So from there, I saw Sawdust City posting a thing online. I was like, yes, I love Sawdust City. I don't care if it's 2.5 hour drive. I'm going. I got the job with Sam, and my first Friday there, another brewery that's 20 minutes from my house post head brewer position, and I was like, I gotta take this. And Sam's like, you gotta take this, man. Yeah. So went off to there. The brewery got in some very, very hot water. I immediately left once I found out what that was, and then they got bought out. And the new owners call me, and I said, as long as none of them work there and we change the name, I'm back in. And then from there, we got to build a brand. Luckily with that owner, he was hands off, let me have pretty much full control on where I want to take it. So we created Tilted Glass. And then I think we got 1.5 years in there, and 5 Paddles, back where it all started, is selling. And I've been talking to the boys the entire way through, and the new owners got the suggestion to take me, and I said, well, that's 5 minutes from my house, so even better. Right. So it all came full circle over about a 10-year period.
That's kind of crazy.
I couldn't be happier. Quite the journey, man. Yeah, I worked a lot of jobs.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's great though, because you got a real depth of experience. Plus, like, that's kind of trippy. You don't really hear of that much, like that full circle thing where you didn't actually get to brew there, but fate had it that you ended up doing your thing out there. That's sick, dude.
It's really cool to go and take that journey to just come back and then be like, hey guys, I learned everything. Now let me bring it back to where I want to be. Right.
Are you the head brewer now, or the only brewer?
I am the head and only brewer, but head brewer sounds way better than only brewer.
Put that on the resume. Put that on the resume. Take that.
Eventually we'll get some help in there, but as of right now, I don't see a need for it production wise. We're crawling back to our former glory, and making sure that everyone knows the new 5 Paddles is back with all that same spunk and innovation that they had as homebrewers. And that's what I learned. So I knew those guys. I worked with them. I want to keep that soul alive, but bring in all this professional level of brewing that I learned out on the road, right?
Gotcha. I love that. With 5 Paddles, I mean, you kind of touched on the story of them, with the 5 guys starting the brewery. With the change of ownership side thing, I guess I'm mostly curious about that. Was there like a time when the brewery actually shut down, or did it continue operation like through a changeover? Like what did that look like?
Yeah, not once did we ever have to shut down. That Fantastic. Was really good. I mean, we got down to I think a beer in the fridge, but then, I you play catch up, and LCBO orders got filled still, and we're thriving today. I think we were at like 9 beers in the fridge, and we got another 7 due out next Friday. So
7 in a day. Jeez, I love it.
Wow.
9,300 cans is what I'm estimating.
That's a
I'm
big truck.
maxing out the system. I'm trying to max it out and see how much we can produce in, that one span.
Gotcha. Is that all for brewery consumption as far as like on tap and on site to go sales, or does that include licensees and LCBO orders and stuff?
Licensees and beer store and LCBO are covered at the moment. I brewed some massive batches, the 20 barrel batches. I say massive. I know there's going to be other breweries out there like 20 barrels. That's not anything. And it's like, that's our biggest system, the biggest tanks we have. So it's big to us. And so that's taken care of for the very moment. We got 3 SKUs. We got Home Sweet Home. We got in LCBO. We also have a seasonal coconut cream pie in the LCBO. And then we've got our In Your Face IPA in beer stores. So
gotcha.
Check out the website where they are. That's not my department. I don't really know.
You just make it. So
I just make it.
How many of the SKUs from past ownership made it into the new era of Five Paddles?
So it's an ongoing process right now. So being a hardcore fan of Five Paddles before I even started there, I had favorite beers that I'm like, we got to make this, we got to make that, right? And we'll get to one of them down the road. But another one was called Baby Belge. It's a session Belgian IPA. And I said, that's the first thing I got to bring back. I just got back from Europe in May, and we did Belgium. So I was like, oh man, I'm just loving all things Belgium at this point, right? So it was one of the first beers I made, even if it was just a small batch, 300 liters. I made sure that was one that came back, even though it hasn't been around in 7 years. Wow. So like it was done when I was still there, and the guys were like, we're not making this again. Right. Okay. So that's the fun part for me, is like, I have this small system that I can just make my favorites on. And then the LCBO gets to be brewed on the big boy, and that's all covered. So the creativity stays there for good, because I have a small, not even a pilot system. It's bigger than a pilot system. 300 liters isn't anything to like stick your nose up. Yeah. So LCBO, we're locked in with those 2 SKUs. Beer store, I got to keep making. So those ones aren't going to go away anywhere. And then I've got favorites that I'm still going through the catalog of recipes that they've made over 10 years in business, right? That I'm like, remember that one? Oh, cool. Yeah, let's do that one again. But I also want to inject me, right? I've learned a lot. Yeah. I think it's time to show the world like what I'm all about, and make sure that, people aren't going to be upset that, okay, Five Paddles is new ownership, but it's also like, no, we're keeping those values, and we're changing the Five Paddles isn't going to mean so much the 5 brewers anymore. It's going to be our 5 pillars of our values, like our quality, our creativity, our community, our sustainability, and then our flavor. And each one of those pillars leans on each other to keep us going, right?
Gotcha. That's cool. That's a cool way to kind of...
that's a pretty good way to tie in like the old era with the new. To be able to kind of still keep the same name, but like loop in a different meaning to it, to bring it into the new era. I do like that like some of the old beers that go back even to the big bomber bottles are still around. Because I remember when I first became aware of Five Paddles, In Your Face in particular, with like the big colorful skull and whatnot, was a pretty memorable label like at the time, and like one that kind of sticks out in my head as like the Five Paddles label. So it's good to see that one is one that kind of stood the test of time in that way.
Oh yeah, and it'll stick around for a long time. I mean, it's grown over the years. It used to be a West Coast IPA, right? I mean, that's just that old homebrew mentality was like West Coast. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we got to keep up with the times here. And now she's a juicy Citra bomb.
Let's go. Love to see
There
it.
you go.
Do you want to do the next beer, fellas, and then we'll keep that story going?
In.
What are we feeling, Garett? Dealer's choice.
We're talking about it. We're talking about the old favorites, so let's just move on to Home Sweet Home over here.
Alrighty. Look at that. So this is an interesting one. So this is a honey wheat, right?
This is a honey vanilla wheat.
Honey vanilla wheat ale.
Yes.
Dope
I'll
label.
go to the old school home.
You can tell now. Is this Is it clear that this one is a flagship due to the like the full printed top to bottom cap? Okay, yeah. I don't think it's a wrap, is it? No, you're right. It is a wrap.
It is a wrap. We are working on rebranding it, but with LCBO being the LCBO, they don't make it easy on you when you want to just change the label.
Gotcha.
So we are, as much like we love the label, it's working for us, but it's obviously different from where we're going and moving on to. But yeah, this was actually the very first first craft beer I've ever had.
No way.
Yeah, so this one will jack up Ian, the old brewers. This is his recipe. So they're inflate his ego. But yeah, I love this beer. I say it's the first craft beer I ever had, but I probably had Samuel Adams before this. And then being a naive college kid, I was drinking PBR in Guelph. Mm-hmm. And
as
loving
one does.
that, and especially in Guelph, you just do it, right?
Right.
And then Molson M came out. Do you guys remember Molson M?
I do remember that. That was a really weird one.
Thank you. I was fully convinced their marketing was amazing. That micro was what the M stood for, as in micro brewery, as in a micro craft brewery. They got me. They got me really good. So I thought that was my first craft beer, and I was buying that en masse. And then I discovered.
And weren't they even saying that like micro? What they were saying, like micro carbonated, whatever the fuck that meant.
That's all they were saying. Yeah, they never actually meant microbrewed this. It's just about the bubbles were micro, which I'm like,
oh come on,
yeah. That's bubbles. I guess it wasn't the big old rocky head of a, West Coast IPA back in the day. Right. It was these fine, thin bubble lines. And I'm like, okay, looking back, I'm like, I don't know what you mean by that. Sure. You just had really good carb stones and you did it low and slow, I guess.
That's hilarious. Oh, macros. Boys, are we cheersing? Nate, you good?
Cheers.
Mate, get that in.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I haven't had a wheat beer in forever. Nice. So it's got talk us through it. So I mean, I feel like the honey and vanilla are definitely like kind of a subtle little background thing there.
Yeah. So the fun part about Five Paddles, and I'm not knocking the boys at all, is that they used whatever was on hand. They switched up recipes constantly. They are always macro adjusting sometimes.
Okay.
So going back through their recipes is fun to just be like, okay, wait, we added how much this time? Wait, no, this one's different. And then all of a sudden you're just like, okay, I'm going to pick one and we're going to, fire from the hip here. So this one is kind of getting more towards my version. The vanilla is a lot less prominent. I don't like an overly sweet beer unless we're going for these dessert style beers. And then the honey, there is no honey in this. It's based on the honey malt, which is only made here in Canada by Gambrinus malting. So it is much like chocolate malt. It is honey malt. There's no chocolate in chocolate malt. There's no honey in honey malt. It's just the style of which they malt the grains. So yeah, it's a little bit of a misnomer, but you know what? It sounds really good, and you definitely get this sweetness of honey and like a honey vanilla cracker, right? Like one of those old school graham crackers is what I'm tasting all the time.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's a little floral as well. I'm almost getting, unless I'm tripping out, but a little bit of like light, very light citrus there. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
man.
this one
It
is
could be for the weed.
like I'll bring up I have no problem sharing all my recipes. One of our brewers at Five Paddles used to always say recipe schmecipe, which, hey man, like because
sounds like a home brewer.
exactly
Whatever.
that, right? Well, I mean, like it kind of proved itself when we all brewed like Black is Beautiful, or we all brewed what was the other ones that like every brewery made the exact same beer with the exact same recipe, and yet you tasted them and you got, no, that one's really good and that one's pretty good, right? So, I mean, he was onto something, but recipes mean something, not recipe schmecipe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've dialed this one a little bit down on the vanilla, and I want to get a little bit more wheat and a little bit more haze in there. So yeah, it's just tweaking right now as I'm learning the system all over again, because that's the hard part is I went from tilted glass and having a brand new system to hey, use this system. It's a piecemeal together, and we don't know a lot of the volumes even on some of these things. We're just off the rocker. You know?
So you had to basically, you're adjusting the recipes as you're realizing that maybe they were written down maybe not so accurately. So it's kind of like, okay, because you're at a point then. This must be like some sort of a flagship.
So this is flagship. Yeah, it's we used to call it the keep the lights on beer.
Gotcha. Totally get it.
That's right.
How many flagships do you have? Or is it just the one?
We're working on Ripple Effect becoming a new flagship, but like Home Sweet Home, In Your Face, those two are nearly from the beginning, always been there, always will be. So those are our two flagships, I would say, at this point.
Gotcha.
I'm excited for you guys to try another beer that we got in the lineup, because that's going to be our new flagship. It's one of my favorite beers I've ever made, and I think it speaks to the new way that like Five Paddles is going to go.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited for that. For a style like this, I find wheat beers are less and less common. So what's the vibes with wheat beers? I guess who is buying them as far as the customers, and what are the establishments that are buying them? Like, is it a lot of bars and restaurants versus, I think you said one of them was in the beer store and two of them were in the LCBO. Like, what's the sort of customer base and sort of, B2B customer base for a style like this?
Yeah, the wheat beers are funny. I mean, like I'm a diehard, I'll drink Weiss beers all summer long. No problem. Right. Erdinger is amazing, right? So I'm a big wheat fan, and I don't have my, finger on the pulse of other wheat beer fans at the moment, but I know that we're selling. We're actually moving a product that is
nice,
a flavored beer in the LCBO. And it's been there as a staple for, I think we've been doing it for 5-6 years now in the LCBO, if I remember correctly. I could be totally off base.
Yeah, it looks familiar. I feel like I've seen this before. Yeah,
and it took a couple different variations. I think this might be the second version of the label now.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been kicking around for a long time. Hence, it is that keep the lights on beer for us, right? When we get to have all that fun on the 300 liter system, this beer comes in and says, all right, we still got bills to pay. Brew it again.
I totally get it, man. And I find wheat beer is like such an interesting style, because I'm back in the day, like I started the beer selfie thing in 2011. I was drinking beer before then, but really exploring like in a much more dedicated way from then. And early on, I was drinking a ton of wheat beers. I feel like they were a super popular style. Particularly, I was in Toronto at the time, so really around Toronto. Not as big in Quebec when we were in Montreal, but to see, I feel like I just don't see them as much today, and I'm like, it's great to hear that like it's the market isn't maybe like a monoculture as far as like obviously IPAs are kind of dominating everything, which my guess would have been the second biggest, would probably be Crispies in the various descriptions. But it's cool to see that something like wheat beers are still have a strong fan base. You know, people are
this one's
enjoying
still
them.
kicking around, man. And I mean, like, well, let's just be honest that every IPA is now a wheat beer anyway. So, like,
In what way?
that every hoppy, juicy, hazy, that's all wheats.
Oh, of course, you're
right?
right. You're right. Of course, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they all base it off that stability of a Hefeweizen, of a Weiss beer, and now you see it just working. And then I think some people want to have their Weiss beer and an IPA and go, oh, okay, I like this one a little bit because it's not just citrus, tropical, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Getting back to that basic styles like we talked about earlier of of those lagers and crispies, people want to go back to this. I think there's been crazy IPAs for now 3-4 years. Are we burning out? I don't know. I don't think so. I think there's always room for these juicy, hazy IPAs. Man, I want to go back to a West Coast IPA. That'd be great too.
Couldn't agree.
Yeah, we're here for that.
Yeah, we're big fans.
Yeah. And I'm talking even like the ones that were old and oxidized and caramel malts, and like those old school ones, right? Now you see some of these West Coast IPAs and they're just hazy with Columbus in it. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. It still works.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of East meets West. Because it's exactly like you say. It's like it's a New England IPA with Simcoe in it, or it's with Columbus or Chinook or whatnot. And what I find ends up happening with those like East meets West, and there are exceptions, of course, but what I find often ends up happening is that it kind of loses the best aspects of of both of them. That's just for my palate, anyways. I would rather have a really good New England or a really good West Coast. I don't really need them to meet in the middle personally.
Yeah,
that's it. I totally hear that.
I see a lot of the other way around. Actually, I never thought of it because we always talk East meets West, which is essentially, like you said, a New England with maybe a more older school C hop or whatever. But then West meets East is something that we're seeing more common, which we'll probably describe as like a New World West Coast IPA, where they're clear as day, super malty, maybe a little more in the amber spectrum, and they have Nelson or Riwaka or something like that. So they're still bitter, dank, malty, resiny, piney, but they're also a touch juicy, and there might be a little white grape and a bit of fucking melon and stone fruit and stuff like that.
Oh man, send me that one because I have not.
You never had that?
Anyone doing west to east? I've seen east to west, but I haven't seen west to east yet.
So in Ontario,
I'm way
Quebec.
more of a fan of.
Yeah. So Nate and I did a full episode on West Coast. I guess it was this year. I have a horrendous memory, but I think it was earlier this year. And we drank. There's a brewery called Saint-Quentin in Gatineau, Quebec, and they have like 8 to 10 different West Coast IPAs that are anywhere from 5% pale up to like 8% double, everything in between, all different hops, color spectrums, everything. And I've never had anything even remotely as good as that. Even I just got back from 10 days. I went to Boston, Portland, Vermont, Montreal again, and nothing touches their. I went to Fidens, which is like the haze gods. I think the best haze, period. Nobody even comes near them. And I had their West Coast, and I was like, St. Cam's better. So I feel like if you're able to get your hands on any of those, that would definitely, just to show you what's going on. I feel like in Ontario, it's just interesting because I wish there was more here. There's a few classics that come out, regularly. Yeah. The LC, the real, Sawdust, of course, and Nickelbrook's ones that are phenomenal. And maybe occasional drops from different places, but it's not super common. It's a shame because I feel like it's a style that just needs a bit more love.
Yeah, when does this episode come out? Because maybe I could be first to market on that one.
Next week? Do you reckon you can beat it by Wednesday?
I don't think I've ever brewed a beer in a week.
Hang on, it's Thursday. You got like Like 5 days. You reckon you can make it happen?
Yeah, got to use Kavaikis in a
Yeah.
West Coast. I don't think that'll work.
Yeah, probably not so much. But yeah, I feel like there's, I guess what we're probably all agreeing on here is that they're fire and there is a market for it. That I feel like it's just more they just got to be probably just pushed out a little bit more and maybe made to be a bit more sexy. I feel like, obviously Haze is the sexy beer that everyone wants. And Westies seem to be super niche, just a real niche beer that is like, if you dig them, you dig them. And it doesn't mean you're an old school head. There's the people who just want Sierra Nevada style, like old school shit, which is phenomenal. But there's another option with with these newer ones that are, I don't know, just fun, innovative little twist. I feel like it sounds like this is totally your jam. And I can see Five Paddles knocking something out like that in the near future.
That's the best part of having two brew systems, man, because I got a 10-barrel system and I got a 3-barrel system. And I could just like rock out these fun ones that we're like, well, we know it's going to sell, but maybe it won't sell as fast as this, right? And you get these little testers. Boom.
Yeah. And if it works, can them and then upscale them and stuff,
It's 500 cans and a 1 keg. And you know what? That goes like that.
Yeah, that's nothing, right? And as well for you, I mean, it's very cool that you got that opportunity, like you were saying, to sort of experiment. Particularly, you're in this new phase of the business. You're doing a relaunch and a rebrand, and letting people know that like there's this new era essentially of the brewery, with the classics remaining, and you're going to be bringing back some old favorites from over the years. But it is a new era, and it's time to introduce some fun new stuff that could put you guys on the map in a different way.
That's it. Cool. And I mean, like you guys talking about that intro, like Durham needs to gain some respect. We have like 15 breweries out here. 15? Some of them are winning. I'm pretty sure we're at 15 now.
Wow.
I would hard pressed to like name them all, but
that's cool, man.
I don't want to try and name them all, and then someone's gonna get mad at me that I forgot to mention that one. So we've got 15 out here, I think, and some of them are winning. We've won a Canadian Brewing Award. Old Flames won some Canadian Brewing Awards. Like we're doing it. We've got Town creating some great IPAs out there. Like there's so much good going on, and that's why it's like we just want to get that tourism out of Toronto. I know it's really hard to get it. Have you ever had a Toronto friend try to invite them out to your place? They're like, oh, but like, why don't you come to Toronto?
We're
trying to do that. We're trying to do that as a business and be like, trust me, like Toronto's got cool shit. We get that. Yeah. But like, you should come out, man. And you don't have to go all the way out to like Prince Edward County, You don't have to make a day 45. Trip out of it.
Well, the good thing about Durham region, I actually just Googled as you were saying that, and I counted about 16, but some of these might not actually be breweries. I'm not entirely sure. There's a whole bunch. So like people could do, and the best part about a region having a lot of breweries is beer tourism. So like make it worth people's while. They could hit 2, 7, whatever you want in a day, because particularly if you go on a weekend, open late, you could start at noon and just have a DD, you'd be good, and cruise around all day to just fun breweries. There's so many to check out there. Like it's ranges the whole. Most of them are kind of by the water from what I can see, but as you kind of go in a little bit, you got a bunch of stuff. It's pretty sick, man. It's pretty damn cool.
It's totally worth the drive out from Toronto. It's totally worth the drive out from Kingston if you want to come from that way. I mean, you got good beers. We need to put some respect on Durham, man.
Yeah, that's a good episode name too. Put some respect on Durham. We got so many. We got so many episode names already. You just like dropping quotables, bro.
I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Oh, there you go.
Pods are the best. So what were we saying before? I'm looking at the time because I know we've got 6 beers to rock in. I didn't want to move on too quickly from this. Should we just do the next one, then we can move back on to the story and stuff?
Totally.
Let's Guy, what are we saying, sir?
Okay, so I mentioned it right before. I think let's go with the one that I'm the most excited about. It's a little Taika Wakatu.
Perfect.
A Session IPA, my favorite beer I've ever brewed.
Okay, let's go.
All right.
So with this one, 3.8, like it really is.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm working on getting that further and further down without sacrificing, any of that flavor, that body.
Where did the inspo for a session IPA come from? Like this, for like a super low ABV one?
It comes from wanting to play spike ball on the beach with my best friends and being able to, get up and walk away.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I feel that.
I want to have 6 or 7 of these by the pool and still be like, okay, we don't need to hire a lifeguard tonight. Oh, nice glass.
There we go. Is Spike Ball's that game with the little trampoline thing and you smash the ball against it, right?
You got
I've seen
it.
that. Yeah, I've seen dudes play that in the park in Montreal. It looks kind of fun. Okay, so it looks like a gem. So this is, I imagine, based on what I'm seeing here, it's modeled after, it's like a New England style.
New England style, New Zealand hops. Absolutely love this beer, love the subtlety of it. And that's all based around the concept of low alcohol as well. So we're using, obviously, Wakatu hops in there and Motueka.
Okay.
I'm probably butchering the actual pronunciation.
I think most people say Motueka. I say Moteca, but like you might be right. I should ask my New Zealand friends.
I was gonna say, aren't you closer to them?
Yeah, I'm pretty close. There's a bunch of Kiwis in Australia. Oh no, so choice, bro. They talk so funny.
Yeah. So the name comes from Taika Waititi, the New Zealand director. He's done the Thor movie. He did Jojo Rabbit. He did What We Do in the Shadows. He's one of my favorite directors ever. So I was like, okay, what's the first thing I think of when I think New Zealand?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, Lord of the Rings. And I was like, no, can't do a fandom beer. Okay, I'm doing a nod of a fandom. And as a big Marvel guy, this guy brought Thor into a little bit of levity. So I named a beer after him, but after the hop that we used as well.
That's very cool. I'd love to see it. Cheers.
Yeah.
Get that in your voice. Nice fruity nose. Nice. Oh, wow. That does have a lot of flavor for, what is it, 3.8?
3.8.
Damn.
It might be down to 3.5, 3. I just brewed a second batch that'll come out soon, I believe. And we're working on getting it down to like 3.5.
Okay.
I think that's still respectable at 3.8. If I could go down to 2.5, that'd be really cool. But I think you'd end up being, instead of being thin, like it would end up being thin and watery versus like light and crispy.
Gotcha, which is what you want. Yes, definitely high carb, which really works for these lower ABV ones, I think.
Yep.
The nose is great. Smell the can, like you really get those, like get the hops out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a good bit of grassiness coming out, especially when you sniff right from the can. I'm gonna try to not go on my session IPA rant that I go on every time we have one on the show. But I do appreciate that like one thing you've managed with this is that it's not coming off with a bunch of harsh citrus, which is something that I tend not to like in session IPAs. And like this is actually quite a bit more mellow, which I appreciate.
Yeah, those New Zealand hops, man, it's all about subtlety, right? You get melon, you get lime zest, little fresh bouquet of flowers going on in there. And that's what I like. I even, instead of doing our salts the New England way, the hazy way, we flipped it and actually made it a little bit more crisp for our mouthfeel. So it's definitely an interesting, and I don't think anyone's doing that sort of thing, because I just judged the Canadian Brewing Awards and I did session beers, session IPAs, and man, it's like you said, everyone's just throwing Citra, Mosaic, that sort of thing into a beer to cover up these thin beers. And unfortunately, fortunately for me, it's not the way I want to go about it. I think a delicate beer needs a delicate hop balance, right? I mean, look at
Yeah.
table beers. Look at these table beers from Belgium. They're not these giant triples, because triples deserve that category. And I'm not trying to make a triple a table beer at 0.5%. Some of those things, right?
Right. Okay, so this is kind of modeled. As soon as you said the Belgian table beer, I'm like, I can kind of see that, and I think it's that spritzy carb, which, like, it's more like, Nate was sort of referring to, and I kind of feel the same way, that like it's just the label of Session IPA as opposed to like to me, this would probably come under a nano IPA, which is something that I saw a lot in Quebec. I don't believe I've ever seen it here. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever seen it here. That term really used.
There's micro by
IPA?
Left Field.
There you go. Something like that, where it was like, it's all semantics, bro. It doesn't mean anything. But I
could go all night and do a 3-hour podcast on semantics of brewing. I'll lose my mind.
It's like, I guess is the thing. I guess there's no like. I mean, maybe the BJCP might have a definition, actually be like a nano IPA is this to this, and a session is this to this. And session could also be interchanged with pale ale, which is typically this to this or whatever. I'm sure there's probably some sort of framework. I don't know what that is, but it's all just like, for us, we're not experts on that. It's just more like what we see. But this is definitely given that table beer thing. And I know there's in Quebec, man, they've been doing this, like the real low stuff, for years. And I thought they were crazy at first. I'm like, who wants that? But turns out a lot of people want it, and I'm seeing like more and more breweries making beers like this, and I just feel like they have a place, particularly post COVID when everyone's fat and broke, and like, fuck, man, I gotta cool it a little bit on these double IPAs, and this kind of scratches that itch with the hops and with the sort of with the flavor, but with obviously lower ABV inherently means lower calories and still maintaining that flavor, and like super refreshing with like yeah, man, it just works.
No, thanks for saying that. Like, that's the goal, is to remain beer, because I think, Nate, I'm like you about non-alcoholic. I would just like, I can't wrap my head around non-alcoholic beer. It's just fundamental to beer for me.
Yeah.
But low alcohol is the way of the world. It is the trend that's going on. We've seen this for 2 years going, and just trending more and more and more. So we have to keep those people happy about their life choices to bring down their alcohol consumption for whatever reason. And I'm with you on that one, because sometimes I do not want to have a double IPA. Sometimes I just want to have that carbonated, beautiful beer, like a table beer, like this Session IPA, and make sure that I'm still going to be able to drive home if I'm out at a friend's house, or I'm able to stand up and party all night. Like, it is almost that that reset button in the middle of all those 6, 7, 8% IPAs that I'm having at a party. I can be like, okay, I'm going to throw in a session or two, right? And keep myself in check.
For sure. They definitely feel that need, and non-alcoholic is an interesting one. I always thought they were hot garbage, and now my girlfriend and I buy them all the time. Like, I love them, and it took, like what you say, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was like, this is just it's horrible. It's just like shitty malty water. But I was, for somehow, I don't know what changed for me, but I was able to just, I think maybe I just had a good one finally, and I was like, oh, okay. And don't judge it as a beer, like it's called a beer, whatever, non-alcoholic beer. And I do agree that inherently beer, really should have alcohol. That's what it's for. But then you just mentioned a 0.5% like table beer, and these ones are 0.05, so it's not even that much less. There's still a ton of flavor in these beers, and that's probably why a lot of them aren't cheap, because they're still hopped with a similar amount of hops as a full alcoholic beer. But I guess it serves a different market than these do. This will serve the market, everything you just laid out. People going out to the bar, to the brewery, to a friend's house, to a party, and want to like be able to be functional and drive or whatever. But then the non-alcoholic is, I don't know, anybody who sober, pregnant. There's a multitude of situations. On my nights off, if I have strict drinking regimen, like nights I don't drink intentionally just because of the pod and all the
Yep.
crap that comes with it. And then alcoholics kind of scratch a bit of a niche there as well. Like I find that it's like a vape to a smoker. I think where you just like you got the action of the can. You're pouring it into a nice beer glass still, and you're still fulfilling that need. Going to Untappd and I'll check into it the same way, and then yeah. Anyway, I feel like all those different products serve a market, and we're seeing that sort of really grow. And it's going to be interesting to see where that market goes, particularly the nano, which is, like I was saying, newer to Ontario. It's definitely taking a foothold in comparison to Quebec. But yeah, man, I think it's super fun, and clearly this is working well so far.
Yeah, it's a front runner at the brewery right now, and
Fantastic.
I love this beer to death. Everyone who's had it goes, "Wow, that's an instant classic, instant favorite," because I think it is different than the IPAs you can get now, where everything is juicy, juicy, juicy.
Yeah.
Not to say that I don't like that, but it's a little bit of a flip to crispy, subtle, and quaffable. You could have a lot of this, right? And man, I was thinking of something. Go on, and I'll try and
jump back in.
Bring that one back.
Yeah. No, well, this is cool, man. And already, like with the 3 beers, it's 3 totally different styles and different sort of approaches. So, being this one is going to be was this the 3rd flagship? Because the home
this
sweet
would
home
be our 3rd flagship if you don't count that the seasonal coconut cream pie that's in the LCBO right now.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay, that's dope.
But this one's gonna stay on tap all the time. Yeah.
Hell yeah, year rounder. It's do you think is it loved? Is it like the region, the customer base in the region? Did they happen to love nano? I'm just trying to understand more like who the market is for nano IPAs in Ontario, because I was a little more familiar with it in Quebec. The folks here who are buying it, do you put it down to, like, I guess you'll probably learn as you start to distribute this a lot more and get it out to different LCBOs across the province and stuff, and licensees, but are the people of Durham really enjoying the lower ABV stuff? Is that like a thing there, or do you think it's maybe a little just broad across the whole province that everyone's into this?
I think we're seeing that the younger audience is looking for those, maybe it's for health conscious reasons or whatnot, but I think it is a younger audience is tending towards low alcohol beers, because just from anecdotal evidence of walking in the tap room and serving this to, I want to say 50 plus year olds, they're like, yeah, but why does it have to be 3.8%? Yeah. And I'm just like, hey, man, it takes all different types to make the world go around. So they go, okay, well, give me the in your face again. And it's just like, okay, great. You have your beer. You're sticking to it. I love that for you. But for myself, it's just something that I gravitate towards. I want something with flavor. And I think that's going to be a younger thing. I'm talking like 25 to 35-year-olds are looking for that. They just got out of their belligerent college years and we're all moving towards like, oh, maybe like, we can keep the cost down, so I buy something 3.8%, and it's just little things like that, because yes, it's hopped to the moon, but it's still at that price point that isn't going to break the bank like a 7% IPA. Some of these guys are charging crazy, but can't blame them because the price of hops, man.
Yeah, it's not cheap. And apparently I've heard the price of hops keeps going up, and the price of ingredients like malt and other stuff keeps going up, and the market can't necessarily sustain any higher increases. So kind of like I've heard anecdotally as well from different breweries that like they kind of pushed it as far as they can go, and they're just hoping that it's just eating into their margins. The more hops cost, the more, and if you reduce the ingredients that's in the beer to allow for that, then the beer is not going to be the same, and then the market's going to complain because they're like, hey, this isn't as big and bold or whatever as it was. So it's a tough business to be in. I think for the short term.
It's a tough go with 400 breweries in the province, man. I think you're going to see the collapse of a bubble has been threatening for how long now, and I think it's coming time that I'm just glad that we're at a point where everyone's making good, clean beer. I mean, 10 years ago, you couldn't say that about every brewery in Ontario. Like, people had infected beers this, infected beers that, or whatever, right? And now it's to the point where I can comfortably go into a brewery and know that I'm not going to be like, whoa, what happened here,
What is that?
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's... I was having a big chat actually yesterday with a friend, a brewery owner friend, and he put me onto this video on... I sent it to you, Nate, that one. It's called TVO. It's like a public access channel or something. I hadn't heard of it.
Hell yeah, we know TVO.
Okay. I didn't grow up here, so I'm not familiar. But yeah, there was just a bunch of brewery owners around Ontario just discussing the future of craft beer and where it's all going and the things that's holding it back, specifically Ontario. And I thought it was pretty fascinating because the things that they were talking about that were the blockers were, one was taxes, because the taxation apparently in Ontario is unfairly high in comparison to the same businesses in other provinces across Canada, and it's putting in a pretty ridiculous burden on breweries to be able to maintain that. And the second thing was the distribution here. So whilst they've opened it up, like if a brewery was, say, Five Paddles want to open a tap room in the west end of Toronto or something to space things out, like you would have to have a manufacturing facility there. Like you couldn't just open a tap, like either a tap room so people can drink the beer plus store. Like you just can't do that. And that's like, it's so ridiculous, the rules that breweries have to live under. A lot of these rules are literally 100 years old from the
they're all
20s.
Prohibition era,
which is just so obscene. I know Quebec only got cool ships and growlers in the last, I think, 5 or 6 years. It's so, I just remember when that came in. It's just so, and they only got the ability to sell beer in a fridge in their tap room if they sell food over the pandemic, just like Ontario got the ability to sell, a cafe or a restaurant can, sell beer and wine and stuff now, with a small purchase of food or whatever, like a 50-cent packet of chips. So it's like there's a lot of hindrances to breweries, and I feel like in this economy, which we're saying a lot, it's just like it's kind of ridiculous. And it's like, do you want these businesses to survive or not? Like, you got to cut this shit, bro. It's not 1928 no more. Like,
that's it.
Let's move
and the
forward.
Ontario craft brewers are banding together, and they are emailing their local government, their provincial government, and we are trying to get that taxation fixed. I just was part of that email. I can't remember now, a month ago, but like, yeah, it's
they're working on it.
It's a long haul to get to somewhere, because I mean, like, we went through this at the second wedge when you couldn't have dogs in the brewery, and we're like, we don't even sell food.
I remember that.
I
remember that.
Yeah. So they led that charge, and amazing job to Rob and Joanne for getting that to work, because dogs and beer, they kind of go together. I don't know why, but they absolutely do.
We got a dog a year ago, and we take him. He's been to more breweries and traveled more than most people, and like, it's never a problem. And he just shuts the fuck up and sits under the table. He's excited, and then I'm sitting under a table again. Okay, fine. And it's like, it's so chill. Like, they bring joy. Like, don't get me started. I could do a whole podcast on dogs and breweries too. Like, it's there's bad behaved ones, but if you got to behavior notwithstanding, it's I think it's important to have dogs and that. Good. I had Joanne on, and she was lovely.
Yeah, she is. I just saw her last week.
Yes, very, very cool people. I heard they had a bit of trouble with the brewery. I forgot what it was, like some sort of damage from weather.
Tornado came right through and it absolutely demoed them. They moved into market and brewing, and then came back, and that's why I was up there last week to see the farmers market and how it was going. And man, it's like they never even shut down. That town supports them through and through, because they support the town. And it's just like us. We're working on community. We're actually releasing a beer with the Humane Society of the Durham region. So speaking of dogs, anyway, that's coming out in
to see it.
A few weeks, because I've got a dog. I traveled through the States with my dog and went to brewery to brewery, and every place was just awesome.
They love it down there. Right?
They love it down there, and that's where it's like, I just got back from Europe, and they have laws that you're just allowed to walk down the street with an open beer, and you're not going to get harassed by anyone. It's just like, why are we're slowly working to that. I mean, Toronto just put in their little thing of
the park thing.
Certain parks, right? So
baby steps. I mean, Montreal had that forever too. So it's like, I don't know, when you like, we just did the big trip earlier this year. We were in Florida for a month, and you go to Key West, like literally anything goes. You go to Savannah, Georgia, as long as you pour it out of the can, you're good. Obviously Vegas, fucking anything goes. So it's like people aren't just dying in the middle of the street because of all of this. So you have to understand that these laws are so archaic and so ridiculous and so restrictive, and the society we live in now is not the same as the one 100 years ago. It's like it shouldn't be this slow to change. Like, it took COVID to change all those rules we just talked about. So, you know, the taxation now, the whatever, just making it a little within obviously responsibility is important. People have to be responsible. There's going to be consequences there. But like, you know, you can't sit there and drink 27 beers in the street. But if you know, have a couple drinks walking around, bro, like, who cares? Like, it's not hurting
Public intoxication is still illegal. You know what I mean?
Everyone's drunk in public all the time. And, you know, it is what it is. Like, anyway, we could go on about that forever. I don't want to hijack the pod with that. So, should we, I'm just looking at the time again. I know it feels like because we're doing so many, we're going to be moving through and jumping in. What do you reckon is next, my man?
Let's hop on to the pills.
Let's go. Crispy
All right.
time.
Crispy time, and then we'll end with 2 flavor pack punches.
All right. Where is she? Oh, almost there. Here we go. Crispy. Hang on. There we go.
No,
So
we're all out of focus now.
Is this beer called Adventure Series, or this is of the Adventure Series of beers and it's the Pilsner?
This is of the Adventure Series, and it is the Pilsner. And
Gotcha.
The point of the Adventure Series for me is to dial in recipes, right?
Gotcha.
I'm learning my system, getting my efficiencies up, learning what it can do, what are its boundaries. So having that Adventure Series and letting people know that no beer is going to be the exact same twice. Making a Pilsner, I think I've made a NEPA, a cream ale, a summer stout. Like we're going to always have it different. And I appreciate that. And that's coming from my old, Five Paddles days of, we didn't brew the same beer twice. It felt like in an entire year. And if we did brew the same beer, well, we tweaked it because we wanted to see this change or that change, right? And
gotcha.
so yeah, that's what we're working on here with the Pilsner. After just coming back from Germany too, I was a little inspired, even though I won't say never, but it's very hard to achieve what they do with thousands of years of brewing.
It's kind of unfair on you to put that expectation there, but you can do your darndest, goddammit.
I will, and I absolutely guarantee that. So yeah, I love this Adventure Series because I'm allowing myself creative room here, right?
Right. Which is very important. Boys, cheers. This smells great.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Nice.
Yeah. A little danker than what we've been sipping on.
Yeah. The hops in this one, is this sauce?
I will tell you right now.
Oh, let's take a look.
Pull it up. Adventure
So
Series
it's
Pills.
definitely very different from the lager for sure.
Yes, that was by design because I could have made a Pilsner, American Pilsner, and I could have made a American lager, and they would have been the same, but one just hopped a little bit more. But this one's, just so you know, it's Magnum and Tettnang, so no Saaz in this one.
Okay.
But I'm loving the dankness on this. I'm prone to a little bit more hop flavor and bitterness in my Pilsners versus some other Pilsners. They're going to be light, refreshing, crushable. I like the ones that are harsh, that demand you to take that second sip to quench that thirst. And then next thing you know, you finish the entire can.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
It definitely does give something a little more earthy to this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely got a kick that the other one didn't have. So it's super differentiated.
Yeah, and I think that's, well, again, it's just the difference of I'm trying to make a Budweiser replacement. I
Yeah,
won't
of
say
course.
copycat because I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to make it better.
Of course.
And yeah, this one is that throwback to, I will never compare myself to Pilsner or Kel, but like that's where we're going, is that
That's what
German
you're aiming for.
bohemian style, right?
Yes, I can see that. Yeah, man. This is like, pills are definitely my favorite. Now, was this like a Czech style pills or German style pills?
German.
Let me add that.
So we went all German hops on that one.
Yes. Those are, oh yeah, Ted Nang is German. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, man, definitely getting a lot of bitterness in there. It's like herbal, grassy, like Nate was saying, it's nice and earthy. A little bit of sweetness. Still super crushable with tons of flavor.
Yeah, that's what we were looking for, and I'm excited to like tweak this in other subtle ways. I want, a bigger head on this and a little more clarity. I think if it's up to me, I want to end up giving this thing, 8 to 12 weeks of lagering time, but that's almost unrealistic in our current climate of brewing.
Yeah.
We'll see how January and February fare for us, but
it's a bit quieter. I hear that a lot. A lot of breweries say like after summer, then they can start doing things that are maybe like, let it sit a little bit when things aren't moving as quickly, which is kind of fun. So like, as far as were you guys doing Crispies pre-you? Like pre the riot?
Yeah, we were doing Crispies.
Okay.
They had one called, I believe, Mount Crushmore. Great name.
What a great name.
A
That's
picture
awesome.
of 4 of them on as a mountain.
That's hilarious. I like that a lot.
It is Schwarzbier, so a dark lager. Yeah, they were doing some lagering. I think near the end they had a lot more time to do that sort of stuff. But when they were at their peak, they were pumping out beers too quickly. That like, how do you make a lager when everyone demands the next beer out 2 weeks later, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
You're kind of in a tough position. Lagers end up being a bit of a treat potentially.
Yeah.
When when you really think about it, there's I think that's why a lot of breweries typically start with a blonde or something, a hoppy blonde or some sort of cream ale, golden ale, something like that, where the getting to this stage where you're able to do like proper lagers is like like, oh fuck, all right, we've stepped up to that. So it's I just wasn't sure because most of the beers I had, which we should probably talk about shortly, is the pumpkin stuff that you guys are doing, or did do in the past. Maybe not continue, but so I wasn't too familiar with the crispy side of things. It's yeah, man, it's great that you're able to do that as well. I feel like you've got the gateway on the light lager side, but then this is kind of a bit more for the a little more. I don't want to say a Pilsner's adventurous, but in comparison, you could probably. I mean, it's the Adventure Series, so maybe
it is the Adventure Series. So I'll let you say it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I dig this one, and I guess going back, I remembered a couple things. Going back to that story that I wanted to tell about GABF was I was the one running up to all the booths that had Pilsners, and I was like, wow, this one's so good. This one's great, whatever, right? And I ran up to Thunderhead Brewing, which is in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. And I said, this Pilsner is amazing. Definitely the best one I had. Here's my contact. I drive off and they email me 2 days later and they go, we won. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, we won. You picked it. I was like, well, I wasn't judging. He's like, no, but you were the only person that came up to our booth and said, this is the best Pilsner you've had. And we ended up winning the gold at GABF for Pilsners. And I was like, I will stop through. So I show up like 3 days later, driving from Denver to there, and got to see their entire setup. It was just like a really cool, almost a validation of my taste buds of being like, okay, I'm not that far off when I say something's good. I think this one's really good, man. And they were jacked that I can't believe they remembered me. Like I walked through the door and he goes, Garett, you're the guy that that picked our beer, and I was like, you saw me for maybe 5 minutes at GABF
Yeah.
with thousands of people, dude. And you got
I guess
me,
that's
man.
pretty memorable when you call something like that. Particularly, it sounds like they're a smaller brewery, maybe, so they probably don't get the props that they feel that they typically would get. So I mean, someone coming up and being like, "Yo, this is but the best I've had tonight," and then they take the gold. I mean, that's pretty sick because I think those are all like blind tasting and stuff. So really, it's just the judges picking the highest quality beer. So, okay, so the Crispies, would you say like that's your shit? Like I'm a crispy guy. Is that like
as much as I don't want to say it's a thing, but it's going to become my thing because I think there's a lot more skill and craftsmanship behind it. We can all make, I don't know. It's a weird one. The first thing I was told when I was homebrewing was make an IPA, you'll cover all your mistakes with a hop. And I was like, cool, great. So I kind of apply that to now, even though that's just not fair or true. Yeah. But I think when we make these lagers, these pilsners, and any other like clean beers, there's nothing to hide behind.
Yeah.
It's, you have those Reinheitsgebot 4 ingredients and that's it. And if you fuck up your cleaning, you're done. That's an entire batch gone, right? So I think I'm I will not call myself a crispy boy, but I think eventually I will go into that. It's just the time for me. I'm not a patient man.
Yeah, I feel that.
So 8
You're the second
weeks,
person to say that to me today.
So like 8 weeks, 5 weeks of lagering is forever. And that's probably just coming from the hustle and bustle of this industry. Yeah, because we all needed to get it out that beer in 2 weeks, right? You untapped guys are chasing the new one, right? And I get it. We've all done it, man. So I think when we put out the same lager over and over again and we're all tweaking, you're not getting that same gratification instantly. It's 8 weeks later. Okay, does this taste the same as this? But you can't taste it side by side because that's 2 different beers now, right? So fresh IPA or fresh pills versus fresh pills from 8, 10, 16 weeks ago are going to be 2 different beers. And now I have to remember that one when it was fresh,
Yeah.
But that's the point.
Yeah, man. But I mean, like, look, the patience notwithstanding, I guess it's the labor of love, and like the outcome is just like, Crispy's the money joint, and I don't know, they seem like a good investment of time and tank space for a brewery, all things considered. But being that they are, I would imagine, a relatively big seller for, clearly you're saying the light lager is killing it. So, the more sort of you can experiment with all that. And if you were doing it before, there's an expectation from the market that, Five Paddles does offer Crispy. So it's super sick, man. And I want to touch on all the labels. So obviously, maybe I would say that the Home Sweet Home, for those only listening, you might want to jump online and check them out, but the Home Sweet Home is probably more of a representation of the old branding, which is what I was used to seeing with that font and that type of thing. But now obviously this beautiful new branding, which is a lot more what would you describe it? Like, it's cleaner, it's very clean, modern.
Definitely clean, modern, a little bit minimalistic in a way.
Minimalist, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you.
Rachel,
not completely,
shout out to her.
Yes.
At the Stay Lucky on Instagram. I'll shout her out all day because she's been doing my labels now for like 3 years. Love her to death. She's making these. I give her a little like, hey, this is what I'm kind of thinking. And then she pumps out something that's just always better.
Right.
Than what I'm thinking. And yeah, I'm digging the new labels. I think it's kind of where we're going as a brand too, of like, we already talked about the 5 pillars, but 5 paddles inherently has paddles in the names, adventure, outdoors, that sort of stuff is kind of where the brand is self-guiding us towards next. And I'm an outdoors guy. Our owners are outdoors guys and girls, right? So it's part of where the brand's going to go.
Gotcha. reason for the rebrand, that was primarily due to the switch of ownership. Like it was like, you know what, if we're gonna start fresh, let's start fresh. Was that kind of more the thinking behind that? So that it's really clear that like, hey, this is the new Five Paddles type shit.
Yeah, so it's definitely to differentiate us and say like, hey, we're back, we're gonna hopefully be better than ever. Also, the old artist was one of the former employees, so they've moved on, and I said like, I've got my old artist from Tilted, let's bring her on. So I think, yeah, it's a little bit of that. Okay, we need to differentiate ourselves from old Five Paddles, but we're also gonna, shout out to them still with their old names and stuff like that, which I think we'll do maybe that one next. But yeah, it's like Home Sweet Home's gonna get an update. In Your Face will eventually get an update. Baby Belge got an update. Like it's just about updating the brand. I think they've been around for 10 years, right? You can't even look at BAOS and say they haven't changed, right? Or anyone like that Amsterdam, right? Yeah. Everyone has to change. You kind of got to keep yourself relevant in the marketplace.
Yeah, and I guess it's like, I would imagine if I purchased a business, I would want to put my little spin on it as well, and sort of, you would. It's interesting because there's like with beer, there's like you want to satiate the existing consumer base and not completely just, all right, we're getting rid of everything and then starting fresh, particularly if you're keeping the brand. Sometimes I guess kind of like what you were referring to earlier with the Tilted Glass, like, they bought a brewery, didn't keep the brand and then started fresh. Different story with this. Do you know why they decided to keep the name as opposed to starting with something new?
That part I don't know. I'll chalk it up to it's way easier.
I couldn't agree more. You already get the assets, you get the website, the social handles, the trademark, and all of that. The business name.
Like, we want to still say that we are Durham's first public craft brewery. So, for us to change, I think that would be turning our backs on, those true fans of Five Paddles for the past 10 years, myself included. So I'm really glad that our ownership did this.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I would say that's true, because it would be a bit disingenuous to keep making that claim if it was under a completely different name. If you do change that, you're really changing the identity of the brewery at that point. And I think that keeping the name really allowed to keep kind of some of the old faithful flagships that the fan base has come to know and love, like your Home Sweet Home, like your In Your Face and whatnot. So yeah, that makes sense.
Not to mention the SKUs, the LCBO SKUs, licensees that already know and love it.
Oh man, it would be
so many benefits.
Just dealing with the LCBO in general is near impossible. Imagine trying to rebrand; it would be next to impossible.
Even if you inherit,
there's just so much that you would have to start from scratch again.
Yeah. It might not be worth it. Yeah.
I think it was an easy enough name to take and make into our 5 pillars of values, our love for the outdoors, our community, right? So it just makes sense to keep it around. And not to mention, they got me, not to toot my own horn or anything, but like, this is where I grew up in beer in a way, right? So I think it's not disingenuous to be like, well, no, we got Garett. This is his home. This is his home.
It's where you started. And it's really like, oh, I see what you did there. Well done. Yeah, it makes so much sense. It's a cool story, really, when you think about it. Like, I feel like it makes even more sense because you're there. And that, you started there and you went and got your experience and then came back and then now able to sort of work with the ownership to sort of, mold it into where you all want it to go. And I imagine they're probably giving you a lot of free reign as far as like, all right, you know the brand better than us and the market, and you're the beer. Do they have ideas, or is it like an exchange of ideas, or do they kind of go, bro, do whatever you want, just make sure you supply our orders?
Orders. So we're very fortunate. Like, it started with homebrewers, these new owners are home brewers, so it's not too far of a jump. And the fact that they know that I've been here forever, it is a lot of leaning on me. But they understand the business. They've taken a look at the numbers. They know it, and so it is this back and forth dialogue, which I really enjoy, because we get to optimize ourselves. Whether that is like, no, I really think we need to bring this core beer back from Five Paddles, or them being like, well, Garett, do something that speaks to you, and I'll be like, hey, well, Taika, that's my jam. And they're like,
Gotcha.
Wow. And it was instant, great seller. And now, I don't know who's going to be listening, but hopefully some Five Paddles old school fans. There's going to be the 10th year of Ophelia. I will make it happen, don't you worry. It is a Christmas Eve miracle that always happens, and it's coming back again. And same with like Midnight Paddler. That one's a classic for us, So I'm excited to bring these brands back.
Hell yeah!
And I think the next beer.
Yeah, let's do it. Look, you're getting the rhythm here. What are we doing? We're doing the
Italian Backyard.
That's what I thought. Okay, it makes sense. So this is another Adventure Series beer.
This is not Adventure Series.
Oh, it's not. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Italian Backyard is a Basil Pale Ale,
which is in and of itself fascinating.
Yes.
And this is another one that's been around for a while, right? I recognize this one from the old branding.
Okay. So
tons of old school fans are gonna love this one. It's been around forever. We're updated the branding on it, and I
don't think I've had this one.
It's probably the only basil infused beer in Ontario right now, I would say.
I couldn't even imagine another one that got like a pale ale with basil in it is hilarious. I imagine it's kind of subtle. No? Oh, well.
You're funny. You're funny.
Okay, I am funny.
Oh boy, I can tell just on the nose it's not subtle.
Have you had this before, Nate?
Tell you.
No, I haven't had this before.
No. So it's like from the guest looking at the SRM there, it's looking like a kind of what we were talking about before. Kind of, I don't know if I call it West Coast, but maybe that older school.
Absolutely.
Pale ale. So look, you guys are already in that business, bro. It's a matter of time to do these like full Westies.
Know.
The market is already warm, ready,
I love
waiting.
this beer to death.
So was this was around back when you were a fan and you were cellar manning the place?
Yeah. We used to grow the basil in one of the brewer's backyards, and he would bring in, a bushel or two every now and again, and we'd be like, all right, throw it into the. We just called it a pale ale, but yeah, it like now I guess you could call it a West Coast.
I would probably still call it a pale ale, but if you wanted to brand, I would say a West Coast pale ale at 4.5. I think that's a fair call.
Please enjoy this with any food, Italian, even like some pad thai.
Ooh, I can see that. Yes. So it's got that big basil nose.
So we worked with we go to the Whitby's farmers market every Wednesday morning. Okay. And just funny boned on my own desk. I'm good. I'll survive the dangers of podcasting.
Right?
No one talks about
with
them.
Beer. I should warn people. That's my fault.
So that's all good. So we go to the Whitby's farmers market every Wednesday morning, and 2 tents down is a farm, and we got our 2 giant bushels of basil from them this year, and cranked out this one, and it is full of aroma, full of flavor. But then this is where that West Coast old school IPA comes in. It is Columbus hops, just danking up the back end with a little bit of Citra at the very end.
Mm-hmm. I would probably describe it as a very unique beer that has no business working like it does. Mm-hmm. Like It's definitely got that like malty kind of like it's bitter, it's dank. I'm definitely getting a lot of that West Coast bitterness. I think this might even be my favorite beer tonight, which I would not have picked on paper.
No one does, and then they all try it and they go, "Whoa, what just happened?" How, like you said, why does that work? Is it like the old school grew it of like, it's like a herb?
Oh, maybe.
Or does it? I don't know. I don't know, but it does work.
It's so strange that it works. I think you might be onto something. I think that the herbal, very highly specific vibes of the basil plant work really well with that malty. Like, excuse me, this wouldn't work if it was too tropical. This works because it's dank, it's earthy, it's bitter, it's malty, touch piney, resin, like all of the marks of a classic West Coast beer, whether it's pale or IPA. And then that earthiness, it kind of just like it's like the nose isn't what it tastes like. Like it smells straight up like you fucking got your nose in a basil plant, but it's not really coming through that crazy. Like it's there, it's subtle,
right?
But it's more the rest of the. So it's like it's an interesting experience. I would say you'd have to drink this out of a glass. Don't drink it out of the can. So you got your nose in the thing, you're sniffing it,
please.
And then when you're drinking it, you're going to get the rest of those West Coast. So it's really just like a fun twist on a West Coast pale ale, and it works super well, dude.
Yeah, 90% of taste is your nose anyway. So, please pour all the beers into glasses, and I have several different glasses going on tonight.
Yes.
So
do
I
we.
can't stress enough, like, use glassware properly.
Could not agree more.
Please. Yeah, I love this beer. Love this beer. It's so big. It's so aromatic. And then everyone writes it off and goes, ugh, I don't know about that. And then they drink and they're like, this makes sense.
Looking at it, I was like, oh, I don't know about this one. But I was like, well, it's got to be, you've made it for a reason. I think it's the subtlety of it. I think it's like kind of restrained. In the basil makes it interesting, but it's like you've like dry basiled it. Like as opposed to like really, if that's such a thing, like as opposed to like really overly incorporating. Because imagine drinking liquid basil, that sounds horrendous. And This is definitely not that experience at all. It's truly a West Coast pale ale that's light, but actually really works well with the flavor. The bitterness is ramped up on this, but it works super well with the malt and the other characteristics of it all. Yeah, I definitely would think this is my fave, and it's the underdog, the dark horse here. But
and this is what Five Paddles is known for is
really
testing those areas that you're like, wait, should that work? And with that 300-liter system, you can test and be like, that one did not work,
right?
Or that one worked spectacularly. Bump it up to the big system, right? Or even double batch that on the big system, right?
Yeah.
And this is where we can talk about the pumpkins.
I was gonna do it. You fucking knew it. You knew it because it was a perfect segue. Yeah,
you segue. You're the host.
Guys, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to run off for a second. My son's crying. I just need to go check on something.
Dude, no worries.
I'll
meet you. Yeah, man. It's all good. So the pumpkin beers, we referred to them earlier. Obviously, speaking of sort of that fun approach to beer that you guys have, I have my friend, I think I said to you off air, but my friend Tim, shouts to Tim, he's the man. So Tim is the beer manager, I believe, at Jackasses in Whitby. He's been doing it for years. We met through Instagram. He listened to the pods. We just started talking.
I've got his Stein Club mug here. I don't think you can see it properly, but
sort of. Yeah, I can see it. Oh, I can read Stein Club. Yep.
Yeah, so that's Jackasses Whitby. Shout out to Tim.
Big ups, Tim, man.
Tim.
He's like a real... honestly, I got to give him all the props for really sort of being an ambassador for Durham region beer. Like, totally. I got onto town early because we connected with them early, but everything else, I feel like Tim really kept me up to date on. And one thing he always did, like, he was always a sweetheart, and he knows that I like pumpkin stuff. So he would get the 5 Paddles beer and just ship them to me. And I didn't even, in Montreal when I lived there, and like just out of the blue. Like he's just such a lovely dude. So I tried to always return the favor and sent him some fire from there. And he won some good bourbon in the SAQ. So he sent it to me so I could get it out to him and shit. So tried to pay him back because he was always super, super kind. So I knew about 5 Paddles primarily through Tim, at least from my tasting experience. So you guys were, I'm going to say this in past tense to to let you speak to it. Did these, it was Pumpkinpalooza was the name, right?
Pumpkinpalooza.
And it was, what, 5 beers every year?
Depended on the year, but they would aim for 3 to 5, yeah.
3 to 5. And I'm talking like the most, and you guys know, if you know, people have been listening, watching for a while, know that like I like probably more of a crispy boy these days than maybe anything else, but I very much value novelty and innovation and ridiculousness in beer, particularly when it works. But I'm also very much equally as I admire eat the swing and the miss as well. It's okay because you gave it a crack, and shit can get weird sometimes. So you guys did a fun one, like they look like the Starbucks. It was kind of like a blonde stout with lactose.
PSL, yes,
the PSL.
PSL.
Was that a blonde stout? It was a blonde stout, like a white stout, right? With coffee.
It's a blonde ale, and then we literally put coffee beans in there to cold brew for like 3 days. And lactose. That is the beer that will come out this year for Pumpkinpalooza. But that is the only beer because I am a pumpkin hater.
It's okay, bro. It's okay. You know what? I feel like it's okay because now you'll probably take more. Trying to push out sort of ridiculous stuff, you'll be more that beer will maybe get dialed in a little more. Perhaps you could say
totally.
The most ridiculous one by far was a pumpkin smoothie, where I really think. See, the thing with smoothies, I think that one did not work at all. It was disgusting, but I fucking loved the thinking behind it. Like I thought it was the coolest shit ever. I was so excited to get it. Now, the thing I learned after drinking that beer was that the reason why smoothie sours work, and I'm a huge fan of smoothies, is that they're sour, they're tart. And if it wasn't tart and you were just drinking mushy fruit, it's like, it's weird. So this beer was not tart, and it was, I believe, you could correct me here, it was straight up pumpkin puree in that beer.
Yeah, I believe that one was a pure pumpkin puree, which
with the spices
I wasn't around for. And these boys, and shout out to them for being
big shout out to them,
creative weirdos that I know and love. But you swing and you miss, and when
it's okay.
That sometimes it works out, and it's the Italian backyard, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and it is a flop. There's actually some beers that they've not released that were some pumpkin ones that I'm still finding in the back alleys of the brewery. But I'm bringing back my favorite one, which was the PSL, even though I'm not even like, I don't even drink coffee, man. And I love this beer.
Okay. Would you do a dark version of it as opposed to a white version?
Yeah. I would if I didn't already brew the light version.
The other one? Oh, yeah, because we're at that time. Yeah.
Dude, like Starbucks came out with their PSLs last week. Like, and
it's too soon. They wanted summer to be over. Like
August 26th, they came out, and I was just like, what? Okay. So we brewed it. Who knows if we'll release it this early, but like the last thing I need is it here in December too, right?
There's also that. I felt that like, and I noticed this last year too, like I felt like every business and people in general are already talking about the end of summer, and like I saw it like the end of July type of thing. I'm like, stop rushing it. We get 3 months a year if we're lucky.
Unbelievable.
Like I've lived here the 13 years in a couple weeks, so like I've seen, I've been through enough to know like, come on now, like let's not
hold on to everything. Hold on to every last drop of summer
for dear life. I mean, thankfully this week's about to be lit from Sunday for the first 4 days. It's like 30 something degrees every day, man. So like we're getting that second wave in September, so we're fortunate, but that always pissed me off. But the other side was that I think fall was amazing. I love, do you know what? I don't know about you. I hate pumpkin. I don't eat pumpkin, but I'll eat pumpkin spice anything, like anything. Right. It's the best.
Here's the thing about pumpkin spice is a lot of people don't even want the pumpkin. They want the cinnamon, the nutmeg, the allspice. They want the
That's all it is.
spice,
Yes.
and that's all. So
Yeah.
guess what? They're getting in this one. They're getting the coffee because I make a beer called the Grind, which we use a local coffee roaster called Treble Clock. Shout out to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a blonde coffee ale. It's amazing.
Okay.
I love that beer to death. And I don't drink coffee. I drink coffee in my beer.
Okay.
That's how I get away with it.
Gotcha.
And this is going to be that. We're adding the lactose. We're adding the pumpkin spice. And that's what you're getting this year is the PSL Adventure Series. Because I'm not a pumpkin guy, so I'm not going to... I was part of the early days of Five Paddles Pumpkinpalooza, which was Frankenbrew, which was a pumpkin double, like a Dubel.
Oh, no. How did that go?
Incredible. So good. Think of Belgian spices, think of pumpkin spice, and you go, oh, this actually makes sense.
Yeah.
And in a dark, warm brown beer.
Yeah,
yum.
Toasty. Yeah, okay. I got you.
What I didn't like was Haunted Home Sweet Home, which was honey vanilla pumpkin wheat beer. And I was like, that one doesn't make sense. People still bought it up like crazy. Like, it is about that novelty of the situation where you can create this beer and then just dump in your pumpkin spice on that 300-liter systems and be like, it's going to sell based on the novelty.
Yeah. And it's no big deal because 500 cans, like you said, not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
People seem to love pumpkin. Well, you love it or hate it. It's very divisive.
Yes.
And there's enough people who love it that would be gagging for all of that. And being that you've kind of like hung your hat on it to a degree, as far as every year, it's something that like even like I'd still never been to Five Paddles, but I look forward to. I'm like, ooh, what's going on? What are you guys gonna do? Like it's it's fun, man. It's like I don't know. I feel like beer should be fun. And I feel like that series really epitomized it, but I also respect if it's not your thing, that you're still doing something for it and still bringing something. And that was probably the most consistent one, and arguably because I've had that one on multiple years, and the crazier stuff was like here and there, like it was like different crazy stuff every year, right?
Yeah, they had one that they did like a series of, and each year it got crazier and crazier because it was called Jump the Pumpkin Shark. And that beer just got, how many words can we put before the word ale, or beer? And so I think that's what you're talking about when you said the smoothie pumpkin, lactose, barrel aged, like whatever, right? It was it was just a test, and that was the fun part, was we just got to just make up shit and make fun of the beer industry in some ways, of saying like, okay, yes, we all are trying the new smoothie thing, we're all gonna try the new hazy thing, even though that one stuck around, we're all gonna try the new brute IPAs. That one got lost in the shuffle, even though I just had one at Anderson. Shout out to them. That was actually killer.
Brute IPAs are great. That was a shame.
Yeah, it is a
cold
shame.
IPAs. Yeah, we could let those go, but brutes.
Cold IPAs. Yeah, it's I don't know. Again, semantics of everything is it really could go on for years.
Yeah, it's an IPL. It's an IPL. Goddamn it, an IPL is a fire. But just don't call it a cold IPA. The branding ruins it. Anyway, like you said. Yeah. We won't go down there.
Yeah, I don't want to set you up for when you have a cold IPA down the road. And then they're going to be like, hey, I heard what you said.
I heard you talk shit about this beer, bro. Like, it's okay. We got to be honest about it. But I'm willing to be... I haven't had bad ones. They just like...
No.
They kind of like... I don't hate it. It's just... Meh. I'm just like... Meh.
Sometimes... So the way I heard it explained, and I resonated with, was you don't get to extract the flavor of something when it is cold. So when you there's a reason a cold brew takes 3 days to make versus a hot coffee takes minutes, right? And that's the way I understood it, of you're not going to get the extract of a hop at that low of a temperature unless you're going days on end. And most of the time, then you get hop creep, and some people like hop creep, some people don't, and just it becomes a mess of everything, right?
Yeah, and it's like technically not, like it's cold IPA, suggesting it's an ale, but it's lager yeast.
If they're using the
cold.
wrong yeast, then that's a whole different thing.
It's not like a lager. It's not an ale. It's a lager. So it's really an India Pale Lager. That's like, there was one, I always forget what the little thing that makes it a cold IPA, but it's such a minor thing. I just kind of feel like it's an inferior. I'd rather just, an IPL is, I don't know, kind of, I think it's just a lager yeast with more like pale ale malts and then hopped like an IPA. Whereas a cold IPA is lager yeast, or is it ale yeast fermented cold? Whatever the fuck
ale
it
yeast
is,
fermented cold, is the one, because now our ale yeasts are so modified that they can work. No
but then it's just, I don't think it hits as well. I feel like, and I liked it, but once again, this is what I'm coming back. I don't want to be critical of stuff because I think it's I really
we just said we won't talk about this. Here we are,
and then we go. I know. After this, we'll stop. I like that people tried it in the same way that I love that you guys tried the pumpkin smoothie. I just think it's fascinating. Like, it's fascinating to me that, like, and I just like that people have the guts to just like give things a crack, you know. I feel like I don't know, you just kind of got to.
That won't go away. It's just in my first 3 months, I'm not prepared to make 5 pumpkin beers. Maybe next year. I might be able to get my head around it and be in that position, but we were making up a lot of lost time, I'll put it that way. Right. You know, these guys didn't need to brew because they're trying to sell, so why would they invest? And so it just became like a little bit of a backlog, and then I played catch up, and now here we are.
When did the sale happen?
3 months ago, end of April, I believe.
End of April. Okay.
Yeah.
So then,
3 months. Yeah, 3 months.
And the transition was, like you said, immediate, and then they brought you on. So there was enough beer in the meantime whilst they searched for the new brewer. Is that really how it was? Like, did the sale, and like you said, got down to like a couple beers in the fridge, and then...
Yeah, so 2 beers were in the fridge when I got in there, and I think by our first canning run, we put in 6, and they were all gone like that, because it's been a while since they had a bunch.
Okay.
And then it was, okay, now we have to play LCBO catch up. So we did that. And then the canning run after that, I think we're on canning run number 4 or 5 at this point.
Okay.
Coming up next Friday. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So 7 new beers out.
So you just sort of started with the fulfilling orders to begin with, which makes the most sense. And then like, all right, now we can have some fun and do some stuff more for the tap room and fill that bad boy up, and really like give like plenty of options when people come in. So that's it for the tap room and for the fridge, which I love, man. Yeah, it's a good way to approach it.
Yeah, Tilted, I had 21 beers in the can fridge at one point, which was like sawdust level of stuff, and I was like, yes, great, I'm fucking nailing it, dude. Yeah. When I can say I'm sawdust level or whatever. And then
that fridge is so good.
So now it's about trying to kind of get to that level.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Hey, look, man, baby steps, and you kind of have too much pressure on yourself, and you know, I'm sure the team is patient and just, you know, letting you work through the process, get used to it, dial it in, and now you got to dial it in as well. That takes time, really.
Yeah. I try to make a rule of like, I'll visit a brewery within their first 3 months, then I'll give them another 6 months to figure out their shit, because I think every brewer goes through this of like, oh wait, I don't like that, and then you don't get the chance to turn around beers like this. You got to take some time to dial it in, like we're saying, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm in.
And I think it's interesting because typically I didn't know this beforehand, but this is where you guys are at. What we wouldn't always, for the exact reason you said, I don't always think it's fair to have a brewery who's say been, open for 3 months on the pod, because they haven't really gotten much of a chance to dial it in. Mm-hmm. And whilst the benefit of being on something like this is like, hey, we're here, you know, you guys are saying, hey, we're, you know, you already know we're here, but we're changing. It's a bit of a different situation because it's more, there's still the favorites that are classic, that are the same, that haven't changed.
Yep.
And now you got some fun. But yeah, I've like, it's up to we have had new breweries on, and they've been happy to be on early on as well. So it's really up to the individual. But yeah, I think that people do need to know that, because maybe the general drinker doesn't understand that there is a time, that the first batches sometimes can be like phenomenal, and sometimes they could be like, I need to tweak this and this and this to get them where they need to be. And people have to be patient. It's just a part of the game.
Yeah, and I'm lucky that like all of my batches have been good. Like, I'm not upset with them in any way, but I am a perfectionist about my beers, and I want to get that part dialed in.
Yeah.
I was just having this conversation the other day of like, been watching The Bear on Disney there, and it's a show about a not Michelin star restaurant becoming a Michelin star restaurant, and I literally had the thought of like, well, why can't I get a Michelin star? So it's about having that level of passion, of desire that I have to make beer the best. And I don't know, I'm not going to say that I'm like going to outwork anyone, but it is that classic, like, if me and Tom Brady had the same amount of time, I think I could beat Tom Brady, of practice. And it's so unrealistic, but it's the way my mind kind of works, of I want to be one of the best. Like when I got to meet Garrett Oliver of the Brooklyn brewery, I was like, this guy is the best. How do I get to his level? So it's dialing in this pretentiousness of Michelin stars and wine snobs and stuff like that, and making accessible beer for everyone. But I do want it to be the coolest and the best that I'm possible and capable of making. Right.
Gotcha. Yeah, man. That's a great goal. I don't think that's like, man, aim for the stars. You never know what could happen,
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely the move, I think.
Can we take a quick break there?
Of course we can. I'll put it on
All right.
pause. We'll be back in a sec, yo. Alrighty, we are back, and felt like no time for y'all. The pause button, amazing. Here for it. So we're bringing it home. Final beer, Garrett. We're hitting the dark beers finally, and this is the Adventure Series Summer Stout.
Absolutely. I love this beer, man. And I'm going to use you guys as a focus group. But
okay,
dark beers in the summer?
Here for
Thoughts?
it. Oh, 100% down. I have a night of the week, which has been a little all over the place this summer for just, traveling and different things, where I call it Big Beer Wednesday. So it's the only night where I drink exclusively imperial stouts or barley wines, typically 10% plus. And I usually would end up being, because I don't drink anything else, be able to probably do about 2 of them. I love it. It's probably my favorite night. Lower ABV stouts, I would love to finish basically every session with a lower ABV stout. I love lower ABV stouts. I'm such a fan, and I was very excited for this one because I just feel like, unless I'm sort of blind and not paying enough attention, I kind of feel like they're not as common as they should be. So whenever I get them, I'm always really stoked. I just find they're just such a look at that head, it's gorgeous.
Beautiful, eh?
Yeah, it's good, man. Great. I just find that's just such a fantastic way to wrap up a session, particularly if I'm drinking Crispies and IPAs and whatever. Like, sometimes you just want this real, like, it's desserty, even if it's light. Like, something to just wrap up the night with something like, easy, a little toasty, a little chocolate, a little coffee.
That's it.
That whole thing, I just think it works so well. Like, I imagine you're also a fan of low ABV stouts?
I am, and I was shocked to see the amount of people that wanted a summer stout, that want a dark beer in the summer. We were like, oh yeah, we hear every now and again a regular just goes on, like, can we get a dark beer, right? And then when we put it out, she gone like that, right?
Damn.
So we were pleasantly surprised.
I'm kind of like, I feel like stouts are like, lower ABV stouts feel to me like they're not as, it's not as like, to me what's wild is like, I used to give my friend a lot of shit because he was always like, oh, I drink a 12% barley wine in my basement when it's 31 degrees out and I'm sitting there in the AC drinking this syrup essentially. And he was amazing, and I always used to make fun of him. And then I did the Big Beer Wednesday thing, and I've been drinking them. Doesn't matter what time of year, and I'm like, makes a difference to me. This is great, and I just feel like there's a time and place for dark beers year round. Absolutely, like unquestionably.
Man, I went down, our timeshares down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and I went to Los Muertos Brewing, which is in Puerto Vallarta, and this guy, he came from like Denver, one of the big Colorado breweries, and he opened his own place, and he had a stout, he had a Mexican stout on, and it was fucking phenomenal in, like you said, 31-degree weather. And I was just like, oh, I'll have two. Thanks, man. Like, this is, it has a place. Summer stouts are a real thing, because the way this one worked and the way the flavor profiles, I mean, cheers. Let's just get it.
First. 5.5, by the way, yo. Cheers, brother. This smells amazing. There we are. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the way I wanted this one, summer stout, tropical stouts, whatever you want to go by.
Like the export ones? That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, like an export stout? Mm-hmm. Okay. But like, this is a little bit, I think exports, if I'm not mistaken, are like 7-ish, whereas this is 5.5, so it's a little more crushable, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the goal. So I think tropical stout is the BJCP.
That's what they call them. Okay.
Descriptor, right? So, we called this one summer stout because we obviously didn't want people to get confused that there isn't any tropical fruits in here. There's nothing going on, but what you're tasting is that cherry, that dark plum, that like those fruits are here, and that's just from malt. It's so good. It's that summer, like there's fresh berries. It's all wrapped up in this chocolate, in this coffee roastiness that's going on too, right? I love this beer, man. When I made it, I was like, well, I don't think we have to tweak this adventure series anymore, because damn,
I think this might be my new fave. I think this beat the Italian.
No way.
It's like, I feel like there's like a consistency with the bitterness. I feel like all of these beers are quite bitter, and I feel like it really works well in this beer, and it's got this this graininess, or like, it's not the chalkiness that's in a New England. It's like a graininess that's like, I don't even know how to describe it. That works super well. It's very much like a lot of espresso vibes. Welcome back, Nate. You can crack the stout. We just cracked it like a minute ago.
I'm drinking out of Das Boot, but it's not Das Boot.
It's like you're going.
It's a soccer cleat.
Oh, boy.
So I was at a vintage market at a coffee shop recently, and I bought a beautiful sweatshirt, and the guy threw in this Wendy's toy from I don't know when, man. And I was like, you know what? Ain't no better time to break this thing in. So, Das Boot.
There you go.
That's the way to move. But like, I like these. This has got like it's got tons of kind of like espresso or cold brew with the fruit. Like the fruit tastes like the type of fruit that's in like a coffee. Extremely crushable, tons of flavor, ballsy, yet very approachable, and it's not offensive in any way. But if you don't like dark beers, this might be a lot. But if you're already into stouts, then it's like, then you're good to go, bro. Like this is the head was amazing too. The nose is fantastic. Yeah, it's big.
Shout out to Carafa 2 malts, which is this dehusked malt, but it's still roasty, and that's where you're getting these different kind of nuanced flavors that aren't going to be present in a lot of other ones. So brewers out there, don't get into Carafa 2s and stuff like that.
Okay, interesting. Man, this is super interesting. I was just saying, Nate, I think this might be my favorite one of the evening.
Oh yeah.
Are you a fan of like lower ABV stouts?
I can be. There are some that I like. There are many that I don't. What I don't like sacrificing in a low ABV stout is body. So if it can manage to keep body, I'm into it.
That's a
I
fair.
would love that we're calling a
I'm now taking my first
5.5%
sip, so
stout
cheers,
a
fellas.
low ABV.
Yes. Cheers, brother. Well, I think
Cheers, man.
it's more just the context to when we think of a stout, like, you know, imperial stouts are more common than
Or session
non-imperial
stouts, I think.
I never heard that before. I
I
feel
mean, I've heard that. I've heard that term a couple of times.
Yeah.
I've heard that used for like a sub 5% stout before.
okay. I mean, maybe I have. I can't recall it, but it's not like wow common or anything. It's more like I
No.
think that like if people think about stouts, there's either like I feel like there's like the 8% kind of realm, and then you kind of got around the 10ish, like, you know, say Péché Mortel is 9.5, and then most imperial stouts in Canada at least are around 10. The bigger ones are like 11.9. Then you go to the States, everything's 13, 14, 15%.
Yeah.
So that's more what we're thinking. So anything less than 8 is low ABV to me. Whilst technically you're right, it's probably not low ABV because what's the Canada rule? If it's 6%, they call it strong beer or something.
Strong beer.
Which is interesting. But yeah, man, this one. So is this the first time that you've done this particular one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
This is my first summer stout, first tropical stout, whatever you want to call it. Summer stout is the name. Tropical stout, I guess, would be the style.
Be more the style.
Yeah, this is my first attempt at it, and I absolutely love it. I think I got either ridiculously lucky or just did enough research for this one. I'm digging it. Like I said, dark cherries, purple plums. That's kind of the fruits that I'm getting right out the gate, and then followed up by that, you know, espresso, coffee, that roast, that dark, you know, 90% cacao chocolate kind of thing, right? I'm digging it, and I'm so glad that people bought this one as much as they did in the summer, because we weren't sure. We just weren't sure. Now we have a 10% one in the works that'll be out in like November. Yeah, it called Midnight Paddler for all those OG Five Paddles people. They'll recognize that one. But yeah, this first attempt at a summer tropical stout will definitely mean we're going to bring it back next year. So
hell yeah, love to hear it. Nate has to just dip out for a sec. Can we just do the thumbnail in case he can't come back by the time we wrap this up? So what we're going to do, we're going to take a screenshot. Do you want to just hold up a couple cans? I'm going to hold up my two faves.
Absolutely. Right. Put my cap on my boot.
The old boot.
Grab my Taika and my Ripple
money
here.
All right, you ready?
There we go.
Gorgeous. Boom. Thank you, boys. Nate, we'll just get, if you come back and we're gone, hit me afterwards. But yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk for a little bit longer, I would imagine.
I'll do my best.
Okay, mate.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming on, man. This was a pleasure. Sorry I had to dip out a little bit.
Totally get it, man. Family first, always.
Hell yeah.
All right, man. Cheers.
All right, brother. So the Imperial version is coming out at the end of the year, which is great. That's dope. So that'd be 10%, you're saying, and it's basically a similar base to this beer, just ramped up to 10.
Yeah, 10% is what we're looking at. This one's going to be Midnight Paddler, so it's an old. I'm gonna move back. My focus is going nuts right now.
There she is.
There we go. Yeah, the 10% version. So it's a different recipe, different name. This is an old recipe of theirs. Again, it's one of those things that's like, well, we have Columbus left over, so let's use Columbus. Oh, we have Centennial left over, so let's use Centennial this round. And they'll just like scratch out whatever the base recipe was and throw in whatever they had.
Gotcha.
So I'm excited to brew Midnight Paddler because it is an award-winning beer, again, for the Ontario Brewing Awards that I can't wait to bring back. And eventually, like, we'll get to the point where I start submitting beers to try and win some awards for us. But
you want to get them dialed in a bit first.
Yeah, I have to dial them in again, if that makes sense.
No,
right?
It makes sense. Particularly existing beers as well. Like, it's like, Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. That's very, very fair. That's what you need to do. It's a part of the process of, the switch over and you getting used to a new system and not having people that not you replacing somebody who could show you the ropes and show you the intricacies. Like, you got to figure all that stuff out, and there's no other way to do that but with time.
Yeah.
So
I brewed twice with Mike, the old brewer of Five Paddles, and that's all I got. And I gave the guy at Tilted, like, I gave him 3 months almost of brewing, and that was just fortunate timing for him. Right. And so it's just like, you don't know what you're going to get when you transition into certain roles and that training,
Yeah,
but
it's all good though, man, because it's like a new fresh start for the brewery, and I'm sure you'll, obviously you've been around, you know what you're doing. It's just I think just how the industry works. So I'm sure you'll get where you need to get. Like you're saying, you've got a bunch of the beers where you already want them, which is awesome, and then you got some tweaks for the others, and that's okay. And then you'll keep messing around on the small system, and it's kind of like a fun time though, because it's exploratory, it's new, it's different. It's it's a cool time for someone to come in and check out the tap room and see the vibes. Where while it's the same, it's also different. So it'll feel the same and nostalgic, whilst also like new and fresh energy in there, and like cool new branding and different beers that are available, whilst also not taking away the classics that they used to. It's I don't know. I think it's all positive.
Yeah, you got it right there, because like we've done some updates obviously to our tap room to make it our space, but keeping the vibes of the old place, and it's just so funny to think back on like when I first showed up. The boys sent me and the front of house guy Pierre, and we went to the Ontario Brewing Awards on behalf of Five Paddles, and the first year we won 5 awards. Nice. And we're just like, what the hell? None of the guys who brewed it are here. And it's just so funny to think that like now coming full circle, I've won an award at every brewery I've ever worked at, whether it's my fault or not. My fault. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of this funny thing that's been following me around. I call it coincidence that when I show up to a brewery that like we happen to win that year, but at some point I'll start taking responsibility for it. And maybe once I start submitting next year, the year after, then we'll see if it is up to, if it's my fault.
I think it'd be once you do start submitting beers and things come through, it'll probably mean a little more, being that like it's just you. You know what I mean? Like you don't have a brewing team. You're not the assistant, even if you are the lead. There's not other people whose recipes you're brewing and all of this stuff. Like some of these are obviously, but some of them are going to be you too. So it's kind of cool because you're entering like different territory now. So you really will know, if it's your shit or not. And like, it's I don't know. I feel like it's an exciting time, bro. It's cool to see like a brewery sort of change hands. I feel like you don't see that too often, like actually change ownership. I feel like it's more like they'll buy the place and not the brand, and they'll start the new brand.
Yeah, I mean, how many, you could probably count on 2 hands, all of Ontario out of 400 breweries, how many times that happened. I can't even think of one off the top of my head that has bought
and kept
and then kept. That's wild. I can't think
either. Yeah,
right.
It's very rare, unless they were like BAOS and Steam Whistle, like the merger or something like that.
Mergers happen,
or what was the other one
now? But
Equals bought Side Launch, and I heard of the other one like yesterday, and I always forget that it happened. There were one smaller brewery bought an even smaller brewery. I forgot who it was. God damn, it will come to me. But like, there's a brewery buying another brewery. These aren't even the same. Now I think about it, it's not the same equivalent. It's not like selling to another independent group of individuals type of thing. So it's a different thing, and I can't think of anyone that mimics what Five Paddles are doing. So it almost might be treading kind of new ground a little bit.
It definitely is. Like the fact that both of us, and I think we're pretty experienced beer guys, can't think of one at all is remarkable, and I think that speaks to how well this brand works in that way. Of you have this core, uh, 9-year-old business, 10-year-old business, and because of how successful it was, somebody is able to buy it and rework it in such a way that we're not going to lose fans, because guess what? I'm here. I was raised here. We're going to keep it going the same way, but we're going to put our own spin on it. And you don't have to worry that the old Five Paddles is going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Which
how many other breweries could do that? I doubt it.
Once again, I can't think of anyone who's done it that way. So it's going to be interesting to see that, and that you're, whether you, instead of someone buying it and then starting their own brand and having to convert a whole new bunch of consumers, now you're able to keep the existing and now be able to grow it with, attractive branding and different beers and different approach. And like I said, fresh new energy. Which can happen. I understand this is a tough business, and some, these guys checking out after just shy of 10 years is fair. It's a lot, and at least the brand gets to carry on. Particularly if you guys were the first in Durham. Are you saying? Did you say
the very first? Yeah. So County Durham, was around just before, but he was not public. He would only sell to licensees, so you couldn't go in for a beer.
So you're talking
right?
First brew pub.
We're the first brew pub in Durham region, and from then, I mean, it exploded. And you look at the people have come in and based themselves on Five Paddles. I mean, like, we were talking to Talon before they opened. We were talking to Second Wedge before they opened. We were talking to Tilted Glass Man Antler before they opened. Like, all these people come and look at us as this pillar of the community and go, oh, wait, it is possible for us to open in such a way that, we're going to be successful. And these guys proved it over 10 years. And now it's just, fatigue, whatever it was for them. Moving on to new opportunities that we get to now seize the opportunity they left us and reclaim the peak times of Five Paddles.
I like that, man. It's very cool. It's a cool opportunity and super unique. So with that, then, what can people look forward to in the future of Five Paddles? Like, what, if you speak to the either current or newer consumer bases, people who are watching and listening and hadn't actually been there before, like, where do you guys plan to take this? Like, what's the vibe, whether it's as far as the styles, as far as anything else you guys are planning to do that you can speak on, at least?
Yeah, I'll tell you this: the quality is going to go up. I have a strict cleaning policy that will make sure that all our quality is going up. The community outreach is going to go up because we're already working with the Humane Society of Durham. We're already working with several different restaurants. We're working with the Durham College. We're working with the farms for our basil, for instance, right? So it's little things like that you're going to see. Everything's taking a level up for Five Paddles while retaining that innovation, that ingenuity that they came into the game with, right? So we're not going to be, I don't know, the macro. We're not trying to be the macro, but we're trying to introduce people to beer that everyone can love. Everyone's always welcome. And we're going to have our new brands out that support these outdoor initiatives and stuff like that. It's going to be an interesting ride. I'll tell you that, because I don't know. I'll say it. I think I have a lot more passion than the majority of this industry. I am not money based, so therefore I will try things and I will push limits. And I've seen smoothie beers, I don't want to make them. I've seen pumpkin beers, I don't want to make them. But guess what? There's going to be a new invention down the road that I'm like, okay, let's take a try at that one. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. Hey, it's good to know who you are and sort of what you stand for and what you will and won't be doing. I think that's pretty important for a brewery's identity. In a market where the identity is pretty key, because you're like, oh, these guys are the hazy brewery, oh, these guys are the crispy guys, this is the pastry stout, whatever. Like, I feel like that's how people typically know different breweries.
And you can do that all around Durham. You could do that in Durham, no problem. There's 15, 16 breweries, and you could point at them and be like, those guys are this, these guys are that. And Five Paddles has, been the crazy home brewer guys. And they always were. And now we're taking it to a level of, no, we don't want to be crazy home brewer guys. We're just going to be the guys that you want to call your brewery, right? I want to be called, oh, wait, have you been to Five Paddles yet? Okay, I gotta take you.
Gotcha. I like that, man. That's a great goal. I think that's once again, it's important to do that, and particularly now to really establish that and to show that sort of, all right, that was the lineage, that was then, that was great, and we're going to carry some of that across, but we're also going to be a little more refined now. And maybe we're not going to do pumpkin smoothies anymore, but we're still going to do some fun stuff. Like, the beers are going to be fun, the beers are going to be refined, the beers are going to be really high quality. I like it, man. I'm excited to follow the journey and see where you guys take it. Once again, like we were saying, it's only been a few months, super early days, but it's cool to get a taste of what it's like now. And we should check back in. Usually we love to do pods every year to 18 months. And I feel like that's
totally down.
Let's just keep in touch, my bro. Like, we're here, and I like the idea of like following the journey, because things change quick, as you know, in beers. That's why I think every year to 18 months is a great sort of, we try to do that. It doesn't always work because you forget and whatever, but I think it's cool, and it's cool for the audience as well to see how things change. So I imagine with you guys, it's going to be extra fast change. When people have been around for 5-6 years, whatever, the change won't be as steep, but you guys are going to be like boom, 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 boom. Like, so much is going to change. So by the time we do another pod next year, you guys might be in a whole different position. I'd be surprised if so much hadn't changed.
I'll guarantee we are. The owners were very smart. They hired myself and Zed Pickering, who is a super sales rep, and we have together.
Zed Pickering is such a gangster name.
I know, right? Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Should be his rap name.
I'll tell him. I'll tell him.
I'll get a feature.
So, we've been in it each for 10 years, so they knew what they were doing. They hired the team that's going to make it happen, and I can't wait to bring it to the public and see where this whole thing goes, man.
Hell yeah, man. I'm excited for you guys, bro. Congrats on the position, on everything that you guys are working on. It's awesome, man. Love to see it. I love to see people doing really fun, cool things and taking chances. And, once again, particularly in this economy, in this climate, it's not the easiest. But you guys will figure it all out. It sounds like you kind of already have it. It's just tweaks along the way.
Yeah.
Love to see it.
Absolutely.
No, it's beautiful, man. Look, I appreciate your time. Dude, where can everybody find Five Paddles online and in real life? Equally as important.
Online, fivepaddlesbrewing.ca.
Okay.
And then you can find us on our Instagrams at Five Paddles Brewing.
That's one to check, yes.
Find myself at Stuckless Life on Instagram. I will randomly tell you when a secret beer is coming out.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's I'm not so good at it, but hey, you never know when you're gonna be like, oh wait, that one's coming out. That's worth the follow. Worth the follow,
guys. throw on the follow. That's amazing, dude. I appreciate it. So, guys, make sure you check out Five Paddles. Get down there, go to the brewery, support, check out the new stuff, grab some cans to go. Like you said, by the time this episode comes out, there'll be at the end of next week, or the end of the week that this drops, there'll be, I think you said 7 new
beers, food out in the tap room. It's gonna be crazy. 12 beers on tap, pretty much all the time. Like we're running quite the show down here, man.
Love to see it.
Put some respect on Durham's name.
Let's go. That's how you end it. Brother, stick around. I'm going to wrap this up. Stick around after I finish. We'll finish up off the call. But Garett, great to meet you, man. Thank you for hanging out and taking the time tonight, sharing some beers. Really enjoyed the conversation. You're a champion. Folks, If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit that notification bell so you know when the new episodes drop. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcast, and check out the long form audio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you get them. Give us those 5 stars. Particularly give it to us for Garett. Give it to us for, for these brews, bro. We drop every Wednesday. New pods. We're not stopping. We're going hard. Guys, we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.